strategies and mental health support. And we're really excited to get started with the webinar. My name is Mira Kanal. I'm a psychology graduate student at Columbia University Teachers College. I'm currently studying clinical psychology, and I have a background of providing crisis counseling to people in military, Department of Defense, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, as well as providing reproductive support and decision-making counseling for National Abortion Federation. This webinar developed as a result of a class project for my professor, Dr. Judy Kuryansky, in her class on psychology and the United Nations, where we discussed the role of psychologists on the global stage, working with governments and nonprofit organizations. We learn about the UN and how psychologists use their research and practice to promote mental health and well-being around the world. Dr. Judy and I talked about how my project should do something to help my home country of Nepal, since she loves the country and knows so many Nepali people. And once all school went online due to the coronavirus, we decided to do a webinar. Then we brought wonderful people we both knew aboard, and it became what we will share with you today. I strongly believe that mental health and well-being is critical to people's capacity to contribute to their physical health, their ability to contribute to their community, and their productivity, and thus the economic growth of a country. Your mental health affects your thinking, feeling, behavior, and mood. It impacts your day-to-day living and your relationships. Mental health conditions are far more common than you think, affecting up to 1 in 4 people. But people don't like to or are scared to talk about it, and there is a stigma associated with it. But I know as a young psychology student that we all want psychological well-being, and that means positive relationship with others, personal mastery, autonomy, a feeling of purpose and meaning in life, and personal growth and development. We attain psychological well-being by achieving a balance of both challenging and rewarding life events. We know that the disastrous pandemic of COVID-19 has brought up feelings of despair, fear, and anxiety in people. In this webinar, we want to create awareness about mental health and well-being in Nepal, especially at this COVID-19 time, and we will provide psychological support and psychosocial support by answering mental health related questions you sent in to us. I know a lot of you filled out the forms and asked your questions, so I really thank you for your openness and your ability to be vulnerable with us and for you to share our questions with us, and it's truly an honor to be able to work with that. We want to reduce the stigma of mental health, normalize mental health issues and illnesses, and set a groundwork of collaboration and advocacy for a better situation for Nepali people. So to do this, we are honored to have a diverse and expert panel at this webinar, from government officials to academics, psychologists, psychiatrists, and activists, and the youth. As Dr. Judy said, this is quite the dream team. Let me introduce them to you. We are so honored to have Mr. Kansham Bhandari ji, who is the Deputy Permanent Representative of the United Nations to Nepal. So
hello, namaste everyone. It's a pleasure to join this panel, and thank you all of you for joining us.
Thank you. And as a Deputy Permanent Representative at the UN, he's doing an important job with other countries of the world to agree on policy with a mind to help Nepal, and you will hear about these policies and initiatives soon. We're very grateful for his commitment to mental health awareness and access in Nepal. Welcome, Mr. Bhandari. Next, I would like to introduce you to my professor I mentioned at Columbia University Teachers College, Dr. Judy Kuryansky. Thank you for your commitment towards mental health and well-being across the globe. Thank you for working so hard on this webinar. I know we've been up and like really working so hard for this and getting everything together. So I really, truly appreciate your commitment. And I remember you saying, we're gonna do it. And yes. And I would like to thank her for endless encouragement and support in putting this webinar together, helping people during this COVID-19 time. I do want to say again how this came about. As I discussed, we discussed this as a class project, and this journey has been so interesting for me as a student to be able to see how multi-stakeholder partnerships and collaborations work. This is my first time doing this, but with her encouragement, I see that anything is possible. Dr. Judy is a world-renowned clinical psychologist who is also a United Nations NGO representative for the International Association of Applied Psychology and the World Council for Psychotherapy, and has provided psychosocial support in many countries in the world after natural disasters and epidemics like SARS in Hong Kong and Ebola in West Africa.
I am so pleased to be here with all these magical people and this dream team, which will be the theme. And you, Mira, I am so proud of you that you are brilliant and hardworking and beautiful soul inside and out. And that is the spirit of this program. And you have brought that into reality. So bless everyone for being here and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krayansky. I would like to thank I want to thank all of you who sent in your questions, and Dr. Judy will be answering them. And I'm very looking forward to it. Now, let me introduce you to Dr. Kamal Gautam. He is a leading psychiatrist and the executive director of the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization, TPO Nepal, that has provided psychological services throughout Nepal. And Dr. Gautam, if you could introduce yourself and just say hi.
Hi, namaste. This is Dr. Kamal Gautam from TPA Nepal. I would really like to thank Miraji and Professor Judy for organizing this webinar. And I'm very much happy to be a part of this team and present the experiences of TPA Nepal in conducting various MSVSS activities during COVID-19 pandemic in Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gautam. I am a major advocate for women's rights, so I'm so happy and so honored to have a women's rights activist from Nepal, Ms. Bandana Rana. She's a world-renowned women's rights activist and inspiration for me and all women in Nepal, and a co-founder of Sathi and Sanchari Samuha. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you everyone. Namaste to everyone. It's such a pleasure to join this very critical dialogue at such a challenging time on mental health, which is so very significant as it is the root cause of all other forms of violence. And I'm happy to join this group, particularly I'm meeting my old friend Judy and my very professional associate, our DPR, Mr. Bhandari. The rest, I think I have collaborated with TPO as well. So I'm happy, particularly I'm happy to join a youthful dialogue. It's always so energizing to talk to the youth. So I'm looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm also delighted that we have another psychiatrist who is an expert, Dr. Mahendra Nepal. He has been a university professor at the Nepal Hospital for many years as an expert in many issues, including depression, and he's also working as a psychiatrist in Australia right now. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, namaste to everyone. I'm Dr. Mahendra Nepal, as said, and I'm a psychiatrist by profession. And at the moment, I'm a bit far off from Nepal. I'm in Australia. I've been here following my children who are here. And I'm working as a consultant psychiatrist locally here in the government hospital, as well as I'm working in the private here. And thank you so much, Judy. And Judy and myself were long lost friends. We're friends since 90s. And then we got lost in the way, like in a Hindi movie, like in a big mela. And thank God to the Google and internet, and you found me. And I was really surprised getting your email the other day, and then I thought, oh, I must participate in that. And anything about Nepal and anything about mental health, I'm very much attached, emotionally attached with that. So I couldn't say no, although it's midnight here. And so thank you so much. And Bandanaji, also meeting you after a long time in this forum. Namaste. Yeah, thanks so much, Mira.
Thank you. So our panel would not be complete without the voices of the youth and the future of Nepal. So let me now introduce you to Ashish Subedi. Ashish, who was a class president of Annandale High School in 2020 and a founder of a club in high school to promote a voice for South Asian identities. If you could introduce yourself and say hi.
Namaste, and thank you for having me. I'm so ecstatic to be here and join you guys. It's a privilege for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. It's great to have you here. Next, Janisha Mainali, who is a representative of an NGO called Yuva that promotes youth voices. She also studies media studies at Kathmandu University and has organized mental health awareness seminars.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. So glad to be part of this team. I feel like I'm part of something so big. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, Janisha. And next, I'm so happy to introduce you to Amiyanshu Kanal, who also happens to be my sister. Ami graduated with a degree in economics and government and studied development economics at Oxford University. It runs in the family to advocate for women's rights, as Ami is the founder of a nonprofit called She Empowered that advocates for women's menstrual rights.
Thank you so much for having me, Mira and Dr. Judy. You guys are doing such important, critical work, and I thank everyone else in the panel for taking the time to be here, and I'm just really pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ami. And thank you. And also, Dr. Ramhari Subedi, I do really want to thank you for your support throughout. And you've really been we've been discussing this project. You've been here since the beginning, and you know, we really appreciate your support and commitment throughout all of these things. And like, you are always available to do technical checkups and things like that. So thank you so much for your support.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me over here to manage your program technically. And I'm glad. Thank you.
We should mention, Mira, that Dr. Subedi is a professor of cybersecurity. And also, this is a family affair besides being a dream team and all of us being related, because Dr. Subedi is Ashish's dad. So that runs in the family too.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And so now that you've met everyone, I want to set the stage and intention for this program with some of my reflections on our time and country. We live in an extremely challenging time right now, as COVID-19 has unveiled layers of discrimination, oppression, and inequities all over the world. We see outrage against racial discrimination, like now in the US, and protests against caste discrimination and corruption in Nepal. People are waking up, and we do want a just and peaceful society. But we do want to share that we come to this event with a lens of positive psychology, which is direly needed given the trauma of the protests, the pandemic, and the lockdown effect on the economy and people's mood. In this spirit of love, I would like to share some pictures that remind me about the beauty and strength of our beloved Nepal. And let me share the slides here. And I just wanted to talk about the resiliency of Nepali people as well. And I really particularly love this picture of Buddha, and it's from the earthquake of 2015. You know, it is so inspiring to me because it looks like there's an earthquake and there's so much going on. But he just seems to be so peaceful with all the craziness around him. And I also wanted to talk about positive psychology. The aim of positive psychology is to catalyze a change. And we want to change our preoccupation from repairing bad things in life to building the best qualities in life. We think psychology and mental health is really about like everything that's wrong, but psychology and mental health is about well-being as well. I thought this was a really cute picture of Pashupati, and this is from Bhaktapur. This reminds me of where my dad is from Palpa. This is how his house looks like. And I think we have a really beautiful culture where we respect not just human beings, but also animals, and we literally worship them. And this really beautiful picture of Swayambhunath. And this is Kathmandu Darbar Square. I hope you enjoyed those pictures. And I learned many things in Dr. Judy's class on psychology and United Nations. One lesson was to appreciate all people, and just a realization that we all want a good life, and in this pandemic, we're all in it together. I also learned about governments. Many government officials are good human beings, trying their best in the context of the complicated problems every country faces. Also, they're open to collaboration with people. We have one such politician from our country with us today. It is healthy for us to be grateful of our governmental officials and the leaders of our NGOs and the youth in our society who are working so hard to partner together to make Nepal and the world a better place. When we come from an understanding and gratitude for everything that has been done and how we can work together to do better, true change happens. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Kansham Bhandari ji, who is the Deputy Permanent Representative of the United Nations to Nepal. Mr. Bhandari ji will tell us about the plans and policies of our government and also the initiative started by our Prime Minister in 2018 with the motto, Prosperous Nepal, Happy Nepali. Mr. Kansham Bhandari has been the DPR at the UN in New York since September 2019. He has made many speeches at the UN for Nepali positions about peacekeeping. Previously, he has served at the Mission of Nepal to the European Union in Brussels and also in Geneva. He was also in the International Law Division at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kathmandu. Mr. Bhandari has a master's in philosophy degree in English studies and a master's degree in political science from Tribhuvan University of Nepal, where he was a lecturer of English. He was born in 1978 in Gulmi, Nepal, and is married to Ms. Lalita Silwal, and they have 2 children. I pass the mic to you, Mr. Bhandari ji.
Thank you. Thank you. That was, I think, quite a long introduction, but thank you so much. Once again, I would like to thank you, Miraji, and Dr. Judy Koreansky for bringing us all together today to deliberate on this important issue of mental health and well-being. I am really happy, and it's such an honor and privilege for me to participate in this panel. I also thank the event co-sponsors, International Association of Applied Psychology, Cyber Headline, and Transcultural Psychological Organization of Nepal for their support. As I said, it's such a privilege for me, and I would, on behalf of the government of Nepal, I would like to thank all of you those of you who have come from different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds. And I would like to thank you for joining your hands for the cause of Nepali people and Nepal as a whole. On this important note, I would like to acknowledge the presence of more women in the panel today than men. In Nepal, there is a strong wave these days about not having man alone, only men panel, and I'm so happy to see more women than men today. And also, on another important note, happy to say that this panel includes the stakeholders from different sectors, including government, civil society, academia, think tanks, and independent experts and professionals. So thank you once again. And as the Permanent Mission of Nepal, we are proud to be one of the partners in organizing this event. And I also would like to thank all of you who have joined us through Zoom or who are following us live on Facebook. So thank you once again. I would be, as Miraji said, I would just be very brief, and I would talk about maybe 2-3 important things. One would be how mental health features in the plans, policies, and legal frameworks of the government of Nepal. And number 2, I would talk about the multilateral approach to mental health that comes vis-a-vis the mission's work. So I would just touch upon that topic as well, and also the way forward as we see it from the perspective of the government. And to be very honest, once again, I'll be and my remarks would be quite generic in nature, because I know the speakers who would speak after me are quite professionals in the field, doctors and real experts and practitioners. So I would just try to be very generic in nature and also a bit brief. Now, to begin with, as we all know, given the situation that we are living in, this COVID-19 situation and the health emergency it has exerted on all of our lives, mental health is increasingly becoming a concern across the globe. And this is not just for a particular country, for all countries, whether they are big or small, poor or rich, or powerful or less powerful for that matter. It affects people of all ages and people of all walks of life. The data show, and I know doctors will be more informed and better placed to talk about this than I myself, but data show that about 800,000 people commit suicide every year. And this is unfortunately and surprisingly the second most cause of death. Suicide is the second most common cause of death among the youth of the age between 15 to 29. The studies have also shown that the mental health issues and the issues related to depression and anxiety cause the productivity, global productivity, which is equivalent to $1 trillion US. And another unfortunate thing is that out of 3 out of 4 people who are suffering from mental illness or who have certain mental health conditions, they do not get proper treatment. And when I say 3 out of 4, most of them live in the developing countries. So that is another alarming thing when we talk about mental health from the perspective of Nepal and Nepali government. Now, having said this, these are not normal times. These are quite unprecedented times, and the normal approaches and usual approaches, as we say, business as usual approach doesn't work. The measures pertaining to isolation, social distancing, lockdown, or loss of jobs, and most importantly, loss of the loved ones, and the illness pertaining to COVID-19 or any other in the family. These are certain regions which affect the people, and countries, almost all countries across the world are affected by this COVID pandemic. And you may have come across the reports in the media or reports in the government or Nepal police that the cases of suicide in Nepal have risen quite significantly, and the reports show that 875 people have committed suicide in the period of the lockdown alone. So these social isolation measures, emergencies, lockdown, closure of schools, most importantly for the children and teenagers, there are certain factors that have exposed the importance and relevance of mental health to all of us. Now, this brings the issue of mental health to the center, and all of us need to talk about it. It's not that we are not aware of this. All governments, all stakeholders have been talking about mental health for some time, quite for some time, but it has become all the more important given the present situation. And Nepal is not an exception. We should be very frank, and we should concede that it is a big challenge. But having said this, we have legal frameworks, constitutional framework, in which mental health and health issues in general have been recognized. In fact, the Constitution of Nepal 2015 recognizes right to health as a fundamental right. And the policy, National Health Policy, which was revised last year in 2019, recognizes mental health as one of the serious concerns, and it has a policy to expand services pertaining to mental health at all levels. When I say all levels, it including local, provincial, and federal level. It was there in the policy of 2071, that's I think 2014, but it was readjusted to address the needs of the new needs of the federal context. Mental health policy 1996 also recognized long time back the importance of mental health in Nepal, and it focused on 4 or 5 major areas, which included building infrastructure, expanding services, and addressing the people's need right at the grassroots level. Since it's there in the topic that is given to me, since the elections which were held in 2017, and since the election of the present government, there has been a national aspiration of prosperous Nepal, happy Nepali, which has been an overarching motto of the present government, which focuses on two major aspects, prosperity and happiness. There are 4 different indicators related to prosperity. I won't go into the details, and 6 major indicators related to happiness. And out of those 6 under happiness, 2 of them are related to health directly. They are decent life and well-being, which come under, of course, happiness, and safe and healthy environment. So 2 of the indicators under the overarching national aspiration of prosperous Nepal, happy Nepali, these 2 are listed under health. And of course, mental health would definitely be a part of that. The 15th National Plan, which was introduced quite recently, also recognizes that given the waves from different factors that have affected and impacted the lives of people, the lifestyle of people has changed, and mental health is a serious issue. Therefore, there is a need to expand, and the government will be a footful in next 5 years and beyond that to expand the mental health service. You may have also read about the increase in the annual budget of the government, which has increased the budget in the health sector by 20 billion Nepalese rupees, which is a significant increase in the health sector. COVID-19 pandemic and the government of, with regard to COVID-19 pandemic and the response of the government of Nepal, we all know this pandemic is a situation in which the response of no government can be considered to be adequate and sufficient, because no government, no country was prepared for the pandemic of this magnitude. Nobody was. That's why we have seen the severe impact of this on human lives and livelihoods. We should know that there are challenges pertaining to addressing the needs of mental health, but what is important is not just the cases that we are counting, not just the lives that are affected, but also recovering and rebuilding better and reinvesting better in the health sector. This has been the recent change, and of course, the long-standing commitment of the government of Nepal, and the budget that I just referred to is one of such examples. The direction towards mobilizing resources in local, provincial, and federal context, because if you look at the policies, plans, and constitutional and legal frameworks of the government, the focus has been on engaging all three levels, 3 tiers of government towards ensuring better health services to people. Now, this brings me to what we do as mission here in New York, what we do to promote the issues related to mental health and well-being. I would be very frank, it's not that mental health comes as one of the topmost priorities, but needless to say, health is one of the topmost priorities for all delegations, and that definitely includes the delegation of Nepal. So in the multilateral, when we talk about multilateral approach to health, we need to remember that there have been approaches, there have been efforts from in the multilateral forums. We can talk about the SDGs, SDG 3.4, which refers to mental health and well-being as one of the major targets under health. And also, WHO, the World Health Organization, brought an action plan on mental health in 2013, and from 2013 to 2020. And that action plan was on mental health. And also in 2019, the WHO introduced a special initiative on mental health. And also after the pandemic that began some months ago, the Secretary General of the UN issued a policy brief on mental health. That was last month on 13th of May to be precise. And that guides the directions. Why I'm talking about these policies and initiatives and these briefs or action plans is because these are the documents, these are the frameworks which guide the deliberations in the multilateral forums. And Nepal promotes, in line with our national policies and plans, we promote the issues of mental health in the multilateral forum. This is one important dimension which we should not forget when we talk about mental health, whether it's in the national, local, or multilateral context. That's the issue of infodemic. You know, that has become so very popular these days, rather widely cited these days, the issue of infodemic, which is, you know, we should be careful, we should be cautious to deal with the impact of the pandemic, but infodemic is also one of the severe issues. By infodemic, I think people generally understand the impact that misinformation, disinformation, rumors, scapegoating, blame games, you know, these things have on the lives of the people and in the works that we do to promote well-being of people. So, saving our people, especially the young ones, from the misinformation or wrong information about health or any other issue for that matter. So that is one of the issues which UN is very much actively engaged. And just for your information, a few days back, there was a statement which was joined by 132 countries, and Nepal was one of them. This cross-regional statement which was issued against infodemic and cautioning the people that they should be aware about the misinformation and disinformation. As a way forward, of course, these are very generic suggestions. Once again, I would like to reiterate, very generic suggestions, because concrete suggestions and inputs would come from the real experts and professionals. As a way forward, from the perspective of the government, I think that it's important to acknowledge and to re-acknowledge, because it's been already done, mental health is a serious issue, and not just during this pandemic, but beyond the pandemic and for a long time. Number two, it needs a whole of society approach, and that's, I think, what is seen today. That whole of society approach will include government, civil society, academia, think tanks, professionals, and private sector, everyone. And our efforts, the immediate efforts, should be to minimize the consequences of this pandemic on the people, especially the young ones and the most vulnerable groups of people, women, girls, marginalized, so-called marginalized peoples or disadvantaged people, poor, and the others. We should minimize the consequences and ensure that they have emergency health services that they need. And number three, we should also minimize the impact of the infodemic, as I just talked about, so that they get the right information, right, knowledge about what they're supposed to do. And finally, we all need to recover and rebuild better, and for that, investment is necessary. And when I talk about national and multilateral or international efforts, one important thing that the countries like Nepal have been doing and have been lobbying and trying to advocate in those forums is that the lack of resources is the major impediment for the countries like us. We can talk about reinforcing the investment, but we need the resources. We need money, to be very blunt. So for that, I think we need to focus more on getting the resources, pulling all resources together, and reinforcing the investment on mental health. So just to conclude, I think I took more time than I was given to conclude. Crisis comes with an opportunity. And battling and resolving crisis is not just always about destination, not just always about where we want to go, but how we want to go. And where we want to reach, but how we want to reach. And that is the drive as a whole. So that drive is important, that walking together is important. So for that drive, the people who are in the drive, what is most comforting moment as far as I understand is that when somebody else comes and says, me too, means I am also with you. So when you hear the word me too, when you are doing something, I think that is the most comforting moment. So for those people who have mental health conditions or who are vulnerable to mental illness or disorder of any of that, that type, for them that word me too would be, I think, a magical word. And the panel today, this initiative today, which you have put together, I think is just a beginning towards that direction. I think saying me too in the issue of mental health and psychosocial well-being and people's health would be really, really very much important. So I thank you once again for this, and I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhandari, for such a well-researched commitment towards mental health. It's really an honor, and it feels really good as a student of psychology when the government and a top government official talks about the commitment towards mental health funding. One thing that I think would be unfair for me to not bring up right now is I've been reading research articles currently with the situation with discrimination in America. And there are instances in research that shows that being discriminated against makes you 10 times more likelier to commit suicide. And that is a very critical thing. And we know in Nepal, we have a challenging situation with caste discrimination. I do want to tie that in with mental health, but I would really appreciate it. And we have had a conversation about this, Mr. Bhandari ji. So I would appreciate if you would just make some comments about the government's commitment towards caste equality in Nepal.
Thank you. You want me to speak now or afterwards?
You can go now, or we can also come back later to you.
Now's good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Meeraji, once again for bringing that important topic. I think I don't need to explain in details the impact that the pandemic of this magnitude, of this nature can have, and the worsened, exacerbated impact it can have when it comes to the people who feel discriminated or who are really discriminated, or the issues like caste discrimination or any other discrimination for that matter, whether it's race or gender or any other discrimination, that can exacerbate the conditions of those people who are really suffering from the mental health issues. So and that is one thing. That's why they are those most vulnerable people. But when it comes to the commitment of the government of Nepal about caste discrimination, I can be very, very blunt and very frank with all of you that the government has a strong policy and legal framework that considers caste discrimination as a crime. So it is not just okay for someone to practice that caste discrimination or discriminate someone on the basis of caste, class, gender, race, ethnicity, whatever. So that is constitutionally illegal. Our constitution, bans such discrimination. So I want to be very clear. So the government or, as a state, that such discriminations are not okay. With regard to the issues of the incidents, rather than the issues, the incident of caste discrimination, which has been ongoing in Nepal. At present, I think the government has taken the right measure. There is a committee which is investigating, and the details will come out, and we will know the facts, and we will also, the government will ensure that the perpetrators are brought under the ambit of justice, and justice will prevail. So that's what I can say. But just to wrap up, caste discrimination is one of those things which are unfortunately in certain corners of our society, but that is not acceptable. And that social cultural thing we should acknowledge is a thing of mindset. So it will take some time for people to change their minds, and we need to also consider the fact that things are moving towards right direction, but unfortunately they're taking, I think, some more time than we would have really liked it to take. Thank you.
Mr. Bhandariji, I can talk for myself and maybe a lot of other people watching, but to hear a government official bluntly say that caste discrimination is not allowed is somehow something we've not heard. I mean, it just is very reassuring and very something that I think the youth especially really needs to hear right now. And the reiteration that government policies, it's illegal for caste discrimination, but I do want to add that the government can make the rules and laws, but at the end of the day, there needs to be collaboration like the one we have right now with civil society, with the youth and different other partners to make that into practice and make it unacceptable in the society as well. So thank you so much, Mr. Bhandariji. You're an inspiration and a hope, and that we have politicians like you. Thank you. And now we will be introducing you to a professional and a person that you might be able to form a great cooperation with in spirit of the United Nations Sustainable Developmental Goals for the good of the people. Our next guest, Dr. Kamal Gautam, is a psychiatrist. Dr. Kamal Gautam comes to us from Nepal right now. Dr. Kamal Gautam has an MBBS, MD, and a psychiatry, and is also the executive director of the leading psychosocial non-governmental organization called TPO. He is a senior consultant psychiatrist. He received his training in Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, MBBS, from Kathmandu University, and training in neuropsychiatry from the Institute of Medicine, Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital. He is a clinician, researcher, technical expert, and a manager. His areas of interest include child and adolescent psychiatry, use of digital technologies in psychiatry, e-health, community psychiatry, and biological resources. He works closely with the Ministry of Health, MOHP, and it is divisions in formulation and implementation of mental health strategies. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Gautam, and I pass the mic on to you.
Namaste. Thank you, Miraji. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Professor Dr. Judy Kuriansky and Miraji for organizing this webinar and including TPO Nepal as one of the presenter in this forum. And through this forum, I'd also like to acknowledge and express my sincere gratitude to all the staffs of TPO Nepal who have contributed a lot in achieving so far and also dedicated their times to provide mental health and psychosocial support services to the target beneficiaries during these difficult times. So today, I'd like to share on the mental health and psychosocial responses of TPO Nepal. And for this, I have prepared a presentation. So I'd be highlighting the key activities through the presentation, and then we can discuss. So today, I'm going to present on mental health and psychosocial response to COVID-19 pandemic, a case study of TPO Nepal. So to highlight briefly, I'll be speaking on 5 major titles. Firstly, I'll speak on introduction to TPO Nepal, and then I'll describe shortly about the impacts of COVID-19 on Nepalese population. Then I'll go into the key activities conducted by TPO Nepal during this pandemic and the challenges that we faced while implementing these community-based mental health programs. And finally, the recommendations based on our experiences on provision of MHPHS services during this difficult time. So to briefly describe, TPO Nepal is one of Nepal's leading psychosocial organizations working on the promotion of psychosocial well-being and mental health of children and families affected by conflict and living in vulnerable communities. We also cater mental health and psychosocial support services to people in community settings and also people affected by humanitarian emergencies. So it was established in 2005 and we work on 4 major thematic areas: capacity building, service delivery, research, and advocacy. So while implementing all these programs, TPO Nepal establishes formal collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Population, Ministry of Women, Children, and Senior Citizens, and National Women Commission to implement these programs and also ensure the sustainability of the programs. So to briefly explain, TPO Nepal has its coverage across all the 7 provinces of the country, and we have currently been working on 19 districts across 7 provinces within the country. And through these districts where our service providers and program staffs are based, they implement the community-based mental health service programs and also the research projects. So this is the photograph showing the staffs of TPO Nepal. So recently we have a total of 58 staffs, including 27 male and 31 females. So that is gender inclusive as well. And TPO Nepal has formal partnership with different non-governmental organizations, international non-governmental organizations, the government agencies, UN agencies, embassies, and also universities from Europe, Australia, and United States as well. So we have established formal memorandum of understanding with the Tribhuvan University Institute of Medicine and also the Karnali Academy of Health Sciences, which are the leading universities in Nepal. Similarly, we have formal collaborations with various universities across the world, like King's College London, George Washington University, United States. And TPO Nepal is also a member of the renowned research consortia, especially the research projects like Prime, Emerald, MHBF, and Opal. So these projects were implemented by TPO Nepal, and currently we are also affiliated with various research consortia as SEER and Essence, which tries to generate evidence on different psychosocial interventions and community-based mental health programs that is context-specific and suitable to the Nepalese population. So next, I would like to highlight on the status of COVID-19 in Nepal and its impacts. So Nepal witnessed the first case of COVID-19 almost 5 months back, and we have almost have more than 5,000 cases being tested positive for COVID-19 till date, and the disease has affected males disproportionately to females. And due to COVID-19, a large number of people have been kept in isolation, and similarly, more than 158,000 people have been residing in quarantine centers across the country. So due to COVID-19 pandemic and also the ongoing lockdown, the various effects have been seen in the Nepalese population. Especially, it has shown diverse effects on the socioeconomic status. Similarly, the cultural context. Also, it has impacted on physical and mental health and well-being. Similarly, the education and employment sector has also been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So, when all this pandemic has been going on and the number of cases of COVID-19 has been increasing in Nepal, the literature and evidences from previous pandemics like severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, similarly Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, and also the COVID-19 infection in Wuhan, China, the evidences have shown increased prevalence of mental health and psychosocial problems amongst the population affected and also amongst the healthcare providers who have been providing services to the general public. So based on this context, TPO Nepal then had a consensus and it decided to conduct a study to determine the psychosocial impacts of COVID-19 in the Nepalese population. So we conducted a social media survey, since at this point of time where physical distancing is encouraged and the state of lockdown has been announced by the government, since the data collection in person was not possible, we decided to conduct the social media survey. So we conducted the social media survey in two phases. The first one was conducted almost 2 weeks after the declaration of the nationwide lockdown, wherein we analyzed 1,507 respondents residing in Nepal. And similar in the second phase survey, we enrolled more than 2,000 people who were residing in Nepal and included 2014 respondents in our analysis. So based on this analysis, we try to analyze the psychosocial impacts of COVID-19 pandemic over the 2 weeks period. So, and we also focused on the 4 major psychosocial problems, which are predominantly seen during this pandemic-like situation, especially restlessness, fearfulness, similarly anxiety and worry and sadness. And we asked the respondents over the past 2 weeks what percentage of the time they have been experiencing these psychosocial problems. It might be not often, sometimes, most of the time, or always. So based on these answers, we saw that at least 26% of the respondents had 2 or more problems, and 42% of them had more than at least one psychosocial problem. And during the second survey, we found, which was conducted, that after 1 month after the first declaration of nationwide lockdown, we found that the prevalence of psychosocial problem has been increased. Although the population among which we conducted the study was not the same, but we conducted the study with the population sharing the similar socio-demographic characteristics. So based on this, in the second round survey, we found out that the percentage of people having 1 or more psychosocial problems was increased. So what we found was, with the increasing lockdown and also increased detection of cases and deaths from COVID-19, the prevalence of psychosocial problems seems to be increasing, and this demands immediate mental health and psychosocial support services to address the emerging needs on mental health and psychosocial support. And when we analyze the data, we also try to find out the relationship between the different socio-demographic characteristics and the prevalence of psychosocial problems. And based on this, we found out certain vulnerability factors, especially age less than 25 years, female gender, single status, and also households with pregnant and children less than 2 years of age. Similarly, occupation with household work or people engaged in agriculture and labor had a higher prevalence, and people residing in the Tarai region and also province 2, and the family income less than 10,000. The lower the income, the higher the prevalence of psychosocial problems was seen. So these were the major risk factors that we noticed in the population having higher prevalence of psychosocial problems. So based on all these, what we found out was there was an emerging need for mental health and psychosocial support services in Nepal, and which seemed to be increasing with prolongation of lockdown and increase in the detection of cases and deaths from disease. So based on this, TPO Nepal decided to conduct certain MHPSS activities targeted to addressing the mental health and psychosocial needs of the vulnerable population. So based on this, I'll be highlighting the activities that TPO Nepal conducted over the COVID-19 pandemic period, focusing on the 4 major themes, that is the capacity building, service delivery, research, and advocacy. Regarding the research, I have already shared a few slides and presentation from the findings of the survey. So I'll be focusing on capacity building next. So TPO Nepal increased its number of service providers during the COVID-19 period. So we hired additional counselors And the team of service providers consisted of 26 individuals, ranging from the psychosocial counselors to clinical psychologists and psychiatrists who provided MSPSS services to target beneficiaries. And so first, what we needed was to build the capacity of these service providers so that they could provide services to the population in need. So what we did was we trained the psychosocial counselors and also the community-based psychosocial workers on remote psychological first aid guideline, which was developed by International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies and was translated and adapted in Nepal by TP Nepal. So based on this, we provided them virtual training to build their capacity in providing remote psychological assistance during the COVID-19 period. So after our clinical team was trained, we started providing services to people. So TP Nepal started its helpline services almost 5 years back in the aftermath of earthquake of 2015. And thereafter, TP Nepal has been providing the helpline services regularly. So during this period, we extended the hours of our clinical services from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And also we extended the number of days that the services were provided every day, every week. So based on the helpline services, we were able to provide the helpline services to 436 individuals. And also we could reach to 492 individuals through different applications like Zoom, Viber, and other online media. And similarly, once the counselors and the community-based psychosocial workers were trained, they were mobilized in different communities across the 7 provinces and different municipalities within the country. And they provided services to people in quarantine centers and also people in the community or non-quarantine setting. So our psychosocial counselors were able to reach to almost 3,000 people in different quarantine centers, 76 quarantine centers across the country. And also they provided services to community people, almost about 1,235 people. And similarly, the community-based psychosocial workers were able to reach out to 311 people in Province 2 in our working areas, where they provided basic services, basic emotional support, and also psychoeducation and awareness on seeking mental health and psychosocial care, and also working on the principles of PFA, that is look, link, and listen. So these are some of the photographs from our services in quarantine settings, showing the photographs of the psychosocial counselors who went to the quarantine centers, and based on the principles of PFA, they provided information on mental health and psychosocial. Similarly, they provided information on signs of psychological distress, and they also took some brochure and pamphlets and also the flex showing the signs of distress and when and how to seek mental health and psychosocial care from. And referral and linkage is also an important area of services of TP Nepal. So we are able to provide referral and linkage services to people appropriately, and most of the referrals were for physical health support and were linked to available services in the nearest setting. Similarly, since TP Nepal has a provision for expert, especially the psychiatrist and clinical psychologist, the psychiatrist was able to reach out to 117 individuals over the lockdown period. And these 117 individuals, out of them, 97 were new cases who turned up during the COVID-19 period, and the rest 20 were from the follow-up visits. And these individuals have been taking regular psychiatric consultation services from TP Nepal. And during our social media survey, we found out that 1 out of 11 respondents reported having experienced or witnessed some sort of violence, especially the physical and gender-based violence. And it has been said that the number of cases of gender-based violence has been increasing during the lockdown period. So as noticed, TP Nepal has been able to provide MSPSS services to 491 individuals over last 31 months. And similarly, most of the services were psychosocial counseling services provided, and a few of them, approximately 18% of them, had some legal issues and provided with legal services, and 3% of them also received psychiatric consultation services. And the other modality that TP Nepal recently started was innovations in the service delivery. Since following the nationwide lockdown, physical distancing, and also restrictions with physical mobility, everything has now gone into remote service provision. So in this context, especially the frontline health workers, they have been working in quarantine centers for day and night, 24 hours a day, and for longer duration. They do not have adequate personal protective equipment, and they are highly stressed out and overburdened with the beneficiaries. So during this period, it's a felt need that the frontline health workers should be taken care of. Their mental and psychosocial well-being should be given a high priority. On this instant, TPA Nepal, under the leadership of Ministry of Health and Population and WHO Country Office Nepal, it collaborated with the Tribhuvan University Institute of Medicine, the Department of Psychiatry and Mental Health, and is now working on developing a digital platform wherein the health workers can be screened using the screening tools, and then the identified health workers will be linked to telepsychiatry services through experts. And also during this online portal, we'll be placing certain webinars and also the modules for self-care, stress management, and burnout, which can be routinely gone through by all the health workers so that they can take care of their mental health and psychosocial well-being. The next, TPA Nepal has been working on advocating with the government and various stakeholders in prioritizing the mental health and psychosocial support issues in the country. So TPA Nepal is also a member of the Interagency Standing Committee Reference Group. Similarly, TPA Nepal is also a member in the United for Global Mental Health. TPA Nepal also represents in the health cluster and mental health sub-cluster of the Ministry of Health and Population, where it provides its technical inputs and also provides its report and also collaborates with the government in providing MHPSS services during this period. Similarly, TPA Nepal also represents in the protection cluster and psychosocial support cluster, which have been activated during this emergency setting. Another work that TPA Nepal did during this period was development and adaptation of global documents, which could be valid and contextual to Nepalese need. And also it has developed various information, education, and communication materials, which can be used to disseminate information to a larger audience across the country. So you can see some of these materials that TPA Nepal adapted. The first one is the interim briefing note addressing mental health and psychosocial aspects of COVID-19 outbreak, version 1.5, which was developed by the Interagency Standing Committee. So this has been translated in Nepal, and this has been widely used in developing the MHPSS response in Nepal. Similarly, TPA Nepal also translated the remote psychological first aid developed by International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and this translated version has been used widely by all stakeholders in Nepal while providing remote psychological assistance to the beneficiaries. So next you can see two documents. The first one is the document which was published by WHO, Doing What Matters in Times of Stress, an illustrated guide. So this is simple, elusive, and also very good and easily acceptable to even layperson. So this basically teaches techniques on self-care and stress management during the periods of stress. So this is being translated by TPA Nepal, and TPA Nepal has also been translating basic psychosocial skills, a guide for COVID-19 responders, which was developed by IASC. So it basically focuses on providing specific responses to people from specific population, like people with a disability, people of concerns, or people with different needs. So this has also been under translation by TPA Nepal. Similarly, TPA Nepal also developed several IAC materials, especially focusing on COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on mental health and psychosocial well-being, and if they face some sort of violence or some sort of distress, how to seek care from, and also mentioning the helplines which could be of great help during this period. So this is also in continuation with some of the IC methods that TPA Nepal developed during this period. And media is a good platform to share and disseminate information and create awareness in the community on mental health and psychosocial issues. So TPA Nepal and also experts from TPA Nepal have been participating in various interactive discussions, workshops, and also seminars, raising awareness on coping and resilience during COVID-19 pandemic, and seeking mental health and psychosocial care. Similarly, the interviews of experts from TPA Nepal and also the findings from the survey and messages on mental health and psychosocial care and during this COVID-19 pandemic have been published in newspaper dailies widely, which have been expected to reach out to millions of population in the country. Similarly, TPA Nepal developed some jingles and public service announcements. So these public service announcements are brief and they last almost for about 30 seconds to 1 minute, and these have been broadcasted through various radio stations in different languages. So the PSA has been prepared in 8 different languages that is specific to context and ethnicities across the country, and these have been broadcasted to the radio stations so that people can understand it easily and they can know how they have been impacted by the COVID-19 and how to seek mental health care from. So I have included here the PSA, and I'd like to play this for our reference. So I've included 2 of the PSAs, one in Nepali and one in English. So with due permission, I'd like to play this PSA.
हालसालै विश्वव्यापी रूपमा फैलिएको कोभिड-19 को महामारीले मनोसामाजिक स्वास्थ्यमा पार्न सक्ने प्रभावलाई मध्यनजर गर्दै यस बहुसांस्कृतिक मनोसामाजिक संस्था नेपाल टिपिओ नेपालले आफ्नो हेल्पलाइन सेवालाई विस्तार गरेको छ। यो सेवा 7 दिन बिहान 8 बजेदेखि साँझ 6 बजेसम्म उपलब्ध हुनेछ। टोल फ्री नम्बर 166001020005, टोल फ्री नम्बर पुनः एक पटक 166001020005। यो नम्बरमा एनटिसी को नेटवर्कबाट फोन गर्दा कुनै शुल्क लाग्ने छैन। हालसालै विश्वव्यापी रूपमा फैलिएको कोभिड-19 को महामारी।
So next, I'd like to play this PSA, which is in English, and I hope all of our esteemed guests will be able to understand this in English.
Considering the psychosocial impact of recent pandemic of COVID-19, TPO Nepal has extended its helpline service. The service will be available throughout the week between 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Toll-free number 166001020005. Once again, toll-free number 166001020005. You can call this number free of cost from NTC network.
So, based on the broadcasting of these PSAs through various radio stations across the country, we have received a number of calls from people, and we expect that this have been able to reach out to larger beneficiaries who are in real need of mental health and psychosocial support during this pandemic. And this is a newsletter that we have published from our visit to the quarantine centers, wherein we have highlighted the status of the visit and also what we observed during the quarantine centers visit, like most of them are inefficient and improperly managed, and also on the activities that we conducted, especially on the basic principles of PFA, psychological first aid, and also awareing people about the mental health and psychosocial problems during COVID-19 pandemic. And also we have made some recommendations based on our visit to the quarantine centers by our psychosocial counselors in 76 quarantine centers across the country. So working in COVID-19 pandemic is itself a challenge, and it's not always possible to do everything as per our plan. So when there is government restriction, especially with the physical mobility, and there is a nationwide lockdown, and the risk of contagion and physical distancing is to be maintained. And due to all this, we encountered a number of challenges while implementing our MHPSS activities to the beneficiaries in different parts of the country. So some of the challenges I wanted to highlight was stigma associated with COVID-19 and mental health. Mental health always a stigma in a developing country like Nepal, and COVID-19 has also been emerging as one of the greatest stigma. I think it's quite comparable to mental health. Due to this, providing MSPS services to people was quite challenging. And the next challenge that we faced was there is a high influx of people, especially the migrant workers from GCC, Gulf Cooperation countries, and India, who almost, we believe that 6.8 million people is out of the country. And there is a high influx of migrant workers from various countries to Nepal. And due to history of recent travel, and also they have to be kept in quarantine for a longer duration. So this is posing more challenge to the Nepalese government and also the agencies who have been providing services to these people. And also, Nepal being a low resource setting, the capacity for conducting testing and also the availability of resources for providing services is quite difficult. And the quarantine centers, as I mentioned previously, have not been managed quite well. And during this epidemic period, people have been more distressed while staying in quarantine centers. And at the same time, when this is not managed properly, this puts an extra burden on mental health and psychosocial well-being. And also, due to the quarantine centers being overcrowded and a number of mortalities in quarantine centers, the risk of contagion is increasing, posing further threat and risk on mental health as well. And basically, when the COVID-19 had an outbreak in Nepal and almost all countries, so everything has now been shifted remotely. So instead of providing services in person, we have been providing services from remote using technologies platform. So many times providing services to platform would be difficult. For example, when I have to provide services to a client, so there are certain gestures, responses, and also providing empathy, doing assessment. So this quite becomes difficult when we are not meeting in person. And doing remotely is sometimes difficult. And also like conducting the mental status examination, like observing the general appearance and behavior, this is quite difficult. And also when we have applied personal protective equipments, this acts as a barrier to establish rapport between the client and the therapist. So this also puts a threat to the therapeutic alliance, and many times providing services, especially the MSPS services to the clients, becomes quite challenging. So these are major challenges that we faced while providing our services to the beneficiaries. So despite all this, TPA Nepal is extremely happy to have been able to provide services to a large population who were in genuine need of MSPS services. And based on our experiences on providing MSPS services to the beneficiaries and also the challenges, I would like to make key recommendations to the concerned stakeholders and the Nepalese government as these bullets. So while the number of cases are increasing, the number of deaths is increasing, and also the lockdown period is extending. So there is a need to scale up MSPS services throughout the country, especially targeting the population at risk, as I highlighted, people with disability, people of concern, and also people who are vulnerable, especially single, widower, female, and also the populations that specifically was highlighted on our survey. Similarly, there needs to be a well-integrated and coordinated effort among the government stakeholders and all agencies who have been providing services. Now, we have been providing services. The services seem to be well coordinated at central level, but there seems to be a gap at a provincial level and local level where the real beneficiaries exist. So we need to have a collaborative, joint effort and also integrated so that the activities are not duplicated and synergize each other and can reach to a larger beneficiaries. Similarly, there are limited organizations and agencies and people trained on providing MSPS services to the beneficiaries. So at this point of time, we need to build the capacity of frontline workers to deal with the emerging imminent need for MSPS services. So we need to train more frontline workers on PFA and also basic support and also on basic principles as highlighted by WHO. Similarly, the health workers and the frontline care providers we have been overburdened and stressed out during this period. So we should focus on their self-care and stress management. Otherwise, if the health workers and professionals who have been providing services are not feeling well, then their service provision will be questionable and will be not able to provide services to the beneficiaries as expected. And this is the list of MHPSS helpline services available in Nepal from different agencies, including TPA Nepal, CMC Nepal, COSIS, TUTS Department of Psychiatry. So if anyone has any sort of psychological distress and mental and psychosocial problems, they can easily access this number and get services. So if any queries, so please feel free to write me an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gautam, for sharing such an important message and for doing such a tremendous amount of work in psychology and well-being in Nepal during this really challenging time. Now, Dr. Nepal, who's from Australia, where it's a little late right now, is going to join us next. So I would like to invite Dr. Judy Kuryansky, my professor, to introduce her friend, Dr. Nepal. Thank you. We can't hear you, Dr. Judy Kuryansky.
My heart is full with what I have heard so far. I'm sure many of you who are with us today feel the same way. We are such a perfect already example, and will be more, about the Dream Team, with the youth of Mira doing such a brilliant job for her first time in managing and being a moderator and introducing and speaking so eloquently and from her heart about her country, and hearing your government official, the Deputy Permanent Representative, Mr. Bandari from the United Nations, the mission of Nepal, speaking so eloquently and with such heartfelt commitment, understanding the problems of Nepal and recognizing all the issues that the people are going through, and saying they are doing their best under this umbrella and under the difficulties. And those of us, including Bandana, who are at the United Nations, know that so many countries are dealing with the same thing and trying to do their best. So to hear him being so committed and so open to participation and a partnership is just a true blessing that you need everyone to know about. And thank you so much for that brilliance and that heart that you spoke so much from your heart and your mind. And Dr. Gautam, I mean, the work that you are doing for Nepal to help the people with their psychosocial support is absolutely major. I have been all over the world to so many countries, and your program has all the elements and intelligence, the research and the service provision, and all the people who are working so hard together to offer help to the people at all times, and also to train and to have a hotline. All of these things that you are doing, bless you, bless you, bless you for your work. As a psychiatrist and in the psychological field as a psychologist, I really honor you for that, and delighted to introduce another psychiatrist who is an old friend of mine that I have met and worked with in Nepal, Dr. Nepal from Nepal, and having worked at the Nepal hospital. And he's now in Australia, but he does go back to Nepal all the time, and spent many, many years working as a psychiatrist and in the hospitals in Nepal, working with people with all kinds of issues with alcoholism and stress disorders, and those who are suffering from torture even, and majorly from depression. He has really devoted his life to all of those kinds of services that Dr. Gautam was talking about. And very importantly, we are delighted that he is with us, and I'm very touched because he comes to Nepal for a vacation and coming to his homeland every year, and came when? Right before the lockdown and before the pandemic started to happen in Nepal. And therefore, he's going to share with us his personal experience besides his professional perspective. So thank you so much, Dr. Nepal, for being with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Judy. It's really a great pleasure for me and privilege for me to participate in this webinar. It's very interesting The total webinar has been organized in a brilliant way, and it's been going very well. And I was really pleased to hear this, two previous speakers, Mr. Vandariji, with the deputy head of the mission in the UN, and Dr. Gautam, with the head executive director of the TPO. Brilliant presentations. And I was really delighted to hear the kind of work which has been going in the mental health field at the moment in Nepal. And it's also heartening to note that there's lots going on in the government at the moment in Nepal. Comparing that with what used to happen in the past, I just got reminded of the first mental health policy, which was developed which was accepted by the government of Nepal in 1996. But for many years, nothing much happened in that. And even for acceptance of that policy, which was written in 1990 and 1991, it took many years for the government to accept that as a policy. Because mental health in those days was not there in the scene at all. And although we used to be talking about mental health all the time, and we used to be repeating the WHO's famous definition of health, but then everything used to be stuck with the physical health and mental health. Oh, if mental health is not a problem in Nepal, it's a problem in the West, it's a problem with the rich people, industrialized country, blah, 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 those sort of things which happen. But I'm heartening to see that things are happening at the moment in Nepal. Mr. Bhandari's presentation was eloquent. And of course, what I would like to add to that is, of course, the governments don't have money. Even the richest governments of the world don't have enough money to provide all kinds of services to the people. That's a fact. But when a government or the people in the government accepts the reality of the situation and then accepts that these are things to be done, and then takes up a guardian's role in doing that, not only the government doesn't have to do everything by itself. Government can involve. There are so many other agencies working. There are so many other individuals and agencies in the societies, like NGOs in the Nepal, very active sector. They are there. The government just has to facilitate these NGOs and not take them as competitor as such. And then when that happens, when there is a collaboration between the government sector and non-governmental sector, then work starts happening. And that what is illustrated in the second presentation of Dr. Gautam. Beautiful work, fantastic work, very appreciative. They could do research as well as a developed action program within a short period of time, etc. It's brilliant, it's world class. And these things need to be adopted by the government. Everything doesn't need to be adopted, but there are certain good things which can be implemented in a much bigger way, should be adopted. So that process is a bit slow in our country, that's what I feel. But this situation is definitely much better now than in the past. But the thing which I'll be talking about is my personal experience. I'll not be giving a detailed professional presentation or a PowerPoint presentation here. I'll be brief as much as possible. It was my personal experience and my personal observation during my visit to Nepal when the outbreak has just started. And I had the opportunity to watch the events unfolding in front of my eyes, one by one, and be part of the occurrence of this big pandemic, which was unprecedented, as mentioned earlier, in the history of mankind, also in the history of Nepal, probably. And it's simply unimaginable to think of such things happening, that a big pandemic happening in such a rapid fashion, like a tsunami or a big bushfire, out of blue, unexpectedly, and in a very rapid speed, engulfing the whole world within days rather than weeks. And then Nepal also got caught up in the whole thing. And the measures taken by the government to halt it, that again was drastic, calling total lockdown, and then that too immediately, stopping all sorts of public transport, and trying to bring down the country to complete halt. And that again, within 1 or 2 days, had a huge impact on the people and the society, and including on their psyche. The country passed through the stages of, I could see the country passed through the stages of grief and loss, just like described in the textbook. State of shock, then a state of denial, anxiety, distress, depression, and so on. Psychological effects was due to terror and fear caused by the spread of the infection, fear of possible death, and secondly, due to total restriction of outside activities, being virtually imprisoned inside the houses of people and being ignorant and unaware of what's happening. So there was a lack of adequate and correct information and education also there. And as mentioned, people were sort of locked down inside the houses, and they had all sorts of negative emotion states they passed through. But what was happening was, although they were suffering, but they were not realizing at the same time that what was happening to them. It was a situation like as if they were hit from two different angles. In one, they were suffering with the psychological distress or negative emotional states. And on the other side, they are not knowing exactly what was happening. And then the news and news about the pandemic is spreading all over the world and also coming to Nepal. That was full of terror. People even used to think that like the virus was floating in the air and people will catch that and they'll fall down and be dead. A very negative image which was from the TV clip from Indonesia, that someone was lying dead on the street and people thought that, oh, and then the TV presenter presented the person had COVID. So that gave a notion that, okay, is walk in the street and you can catch the infection, you can catch the virus, and then you can be dead. That sort of notion it gave. Focus and the coverage on the psychological aspect of the outbreak was not there much because of the pre-existing psychological support for people also was minimum, and there was no system of care for the whole country. Anxiety and panic symptoms reportedly occur very commonly. Depression also increased. People tried various means to tackle these negative emotions. Some tackle with the positive, healthy ways like using meditation or talking to each other or trying to supporting each other or doing some physical exercises. But for majority, people resorted to unhealthy coping mechanisms to suppress their negative emotions, like abuse of alcohol and drugs. And that skyrocketed. Sale of alcohol just went up. The snapshot surveys showed that around in the corner shops in Nepal, which is where the alcohol is available, the sale increased by 3 to 5 times after the COVID pandemic. And similarly, the use of drugs also increased, which was indicated in the increase in the seizure data of police. Many got into somatization of distress, and so there was an increase in physical illnesses, but these couldn't be attended because again there was restriction to go out of the house. And last but not the least, were the very tragic consequences of increase in the suicide rate was very tragic. And we all know that there are around more than 1,000 cases of suicide occurring during that period. So that was what I saw and I observed during my stay while I was there in Nepal. And I feel there's a lot need to be done, both on the part of the government and others. Nepal still is in that grip. It has not come out of it. A lot has been done. I appreciate what people have done it, but there's a long way to go. Having said that, I think I'll stop here.
Yes,
I'll be happy to take up questions if there are any.
we will. Thank you, Dr. Nepal.
Yeah.
We will take some questions later, and it's moving to know that you were actually in your home country in Nepal during the height of this, and that you were able, though you were, I know you're okay with me sharing this, so you were in lockdown yourself, able to speak to your former patients, because you had many from the years of being in Nepal, who were calling you, and you were able through the telephone to be able to counsel them through your psychiatric background, through with depression, and be able to help people through their stress. So I think this is an important aspect to understand, that even though we are alone and separated and in lockdown, that through the telephone, as Dr. Gautam was talking about with the hotline, that even having private sessions with you as a psychiatrist can really help with those patients, for example, who were, as you shared with me, drinking only at night, and now all of a sudden we're drinking in the morning. And so you're helping them through that. Alcoholism and depression was very important. So thank you for your service very much, and for your being there, and for everything that you said about the government and civil society working together, because that is the point that we really are creating here, and this is what is going to go on. So all of you who are part of this program too are part of what we call civil society. So this is our goal, is for all of us to work together. I think Mira said that, so I'm going to pass it to Mira to introduce me.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nepal. And thank you to all of you for wonderful conversations. I did introduce Dr. Judy, but I do want to kind of say a little more about her. She was my professor at Columbia University, and I remember going to her class, and it was not one of my requirements for graduation, but I just was so inspired by the way she was and her views and the way she interacted with the students. I was like, okay, I have to take this class. And I'm so glad I did. And I just really want to thank you for making me realize that nothing is impossible, because this was a really big project for me, and I've never really moderated before. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Mira. I'm so proud of you for what you have done and what you are doing, because you truly are a star student. That this idea and this all came together as this dream team that is so important. So I truly have such a deep, deep, soulful feeling towards Nepal and towards Nepalese people, and many of my Nepalese friends that I still stay in touch with, Pramod and Sajbina, and all of you who know your names and who are with us today. And so when Mira walked into my class, it was like, oh, now we are going to do something good for Nepal. And here it is. So her brilliance.
Yeah.
That's your parents, because I say as a psychologist, it's the parents behind the children who allow them to be this way, between you and your sister, who we will meet later. So yeah. I know they're watching too, and your grandma.
Yeah. Dr. Judy, I really appreciate you bringing up my parents, because they're very excited, and they've been inviting a lot of people, and they appreciate the shout out. So thank you to my parents as well.
Part of this.
Yes, and a little bit about Dr. Judy Koryansky. Oh. She is a noted international psychologist on the faculty in the Department of Clinical Psychology at Columbia University Teachers College. At the United Nations, she represents the International Association of Applied Psychology and the World Council of Psychotherapy. She has helped many people around the world in trauma in Haiti, China, Japan, Sri Lanka, Iran, and her own country, the USA, after 9/11 terrorism attacks, earthquakes, and epidemics like SARS and Ebola. Besides helping the world, she is also a famous relationship counselor who has written advice in many magazines, newspapers, and books like The Complete Idiot's Guide to a Healthy Relationship, and The Complete Idiot's Guide to Dating. She has also spent 20 years on the radio answering people's questions about love and life and giving wise advice, which she will do on this program, including answering questions many of you have sent us. So welcome, Dr. Judy.
Well, thank you so much, Mira. I really appreciate it. And as I said, I have a deep appreciation for Nepal and for the Nepalese people. And so I hope you can see my screen now, right? And I just show very, very quickly some of these broad pictures of my association going many, many years back, honoring Nepal, mental health and well-being and resilience and hope, as you could see there. That is the famous Bodha Stupa, and people walking around it, which I actually did when I was there during the one of the major events and festivals that happen. And you can see on the right screen there, that is how I dressed in the traditional garb and banging a drum that was made for all of us and for me individually in order to create this sense of healing the world in a very healing place. These are all the, right here, everything that I was wearing at that time that you could see in that picture. All the sacred beads, and I will put them down though because they all have bells and I don't want them to distract us, but you could see the picture there. At the time created a friendship with the Right Honorable Ganesh Basra, the Chini Lama. This is that you see there with all his family, Sajbina, and that was his 50th anniversary with his beautiful wife. You see his son, His Highness Guru Rinpoche, Bhuti Basra Lama. And then there are many of the things. I'm surrounded in my office and my home with many things about Nepal. You see here many of my goddess statues that I will talk about. There are many, many, many of them. They're all around, and you can see a picture of them. I'll discuss them a little later. I have tankas that you see here that are hanging on my walls. It's been very powerful to spend time in some very sacred places in Nepal, because that is the point that I feel that this is a sacred country. And when I get into the questions and the things that are going on and all the things that your Deputy Permanent Representative and Dr. Nepal and Dr. Gautam had talked about in terms of, you know, the stress that goes on with people, the point is that I want you to remember that this is a sacred place. I was filled with spirituality and sacredness being there. So that is the Kali shrine outside Kathmandu that you see there. Where many sacrifices are made. That is a blessing from one of the holy men there. I did climb the Annapurna range as a way to really build up the sense of resilience, which is, by the way, what I heard mentioned before, and that is definitely a word that belongs to the Nepali people, this sense of resilience, and that is important psychologically in the questions I will address. The Pilgrim's Bookstore, I'm sure many of you have spent many times. I spent many, many years there. In fact, the books that I wrote that Mira mentioned, I found, oh my goodness, there's my books in the Pilgrim's Bookstores. And then, of course, the gorgeous temples that you have there that Mira has also shown in her presentation that are extremely spiritual and a way to really bring our spirits up. Your Deputy Permanent Representative, Mr. Bhandari, did talk about the Prosperous Nepal, Happy Nepali program and initiative that is going on that I think is important and very significant, because some of the questions were about how can I be happy? And the government cares about it. This is something that actually started in Bhutan in the 70s when the government cared about how happy are the people, not how much money they have in their pocket. But the true growth of the country is about how the people feel. It is an aspirational motto. You see there the Prime Minister when he made his announcement about it, the picture underneath about what is possible given the sacred lands. And there is what's called the World Happiness Report by a very prestigious organization here in New York and at the United Nations that ranks countries. And Nepal was ranked in last year as the 3rd happiest country in South Asia, based on how the people feel and what the resources are. So this is aspirational and something we need to work on all together. You've heard a bit from your DPR, Bhandari, about the government commitment. I'm very sensitive about that, so is Bandana. Rama, who will speak later because she is also at the United Nations working in her work. There are several documents that I just want you to know are where the governments of the world and your government are working on these. We're not without difficulty and stresses and challenges, but they all agreed, the governments, about the universal, about the Sustainable Development Goals, that you see that infographic there with number 3, goal 3, which is mental health, 3.4, under that is mental health and well-being. So that is a goal of Nepal and the other countries of the world. Secondly, universal health coverage. You see the umbrella, that means everybody gets covered, particularly people who are below the poverty line, senior citizens, and children. And those who also the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is something that Nepal has signed on to. You have heard many important services. I am so impressed with TPO Nepal and what you are doing, Dr. Gautam. So you can see the pictures there of TPO Nepal. We will hear later about Sakri that we will, Bandana will be talking about, and about Yuva, the program, and also Janisha's program. So all of that will come up later. That is very inspiring. As Amira said, for years I have been on the radio. So I have heard thousands and thousands and thousands of questions from people of all ages, a lot of young people, but all ages. And they want to know generally that I want to know in the umbrella of these answers that I'm giving, your feelings are normal. I will repeat that many times. You are not the only one who feels this way, even though you are isolated in your in being in lockdown. And there is hope, and there is help. As you hear from TPO and other organizations, we will give you the resources for. So you are normal, you're not the only one, even though you feel isolated, and there is help and hope, which is very important. There's lots of stresses, all those stresses you see there. At home, with finances, with relationships, with your health, with work situations that are in a turmoil. All of that is happening, and you should acknowledge that if you are stressed, it comes from that. And also can trigger underneath things, because I'm showing you here, this is a Russian toy that this may be the way we feel now, right? But there's also something underneath our feelings and past experiences that we have. And from a psychological point of view, it goes way, way, way down. So the feelings that you have now can be triggered by many other things that have happened for you. These are some, later we're going to hear from Yuva, from the youth organization, but I'm using them here because these signs here are to stamp out what I call the 3 S's. That is what we heard before: shame, stigma, and silence. These are the themes that have been brought up that I feel very strongly about. No shame for any of the feelings that you have. Forget the stigma. Your feelings are normal. Whatever you call it, whether it's stress or mental illness or mental health, it's all about your well-being, not a disease, because it's the same as any physical disease. And no reason to be silent. We must talk. So these signs are brilliant from Yuva that say mental illness is health, not just like physics. Together we can stamp out stigma. Let's talk. And I, Dr. Gautam, Dr. Nepal, others, your friends, your family, will listen to you and care about you. And that is important. Know that you are resilient. Resilience, it means like you're a bouncing ball. So here's the ball I have, okay? I'm going to bounce the ball. That's the trauma. And it bounces back higher than when I first dropped it. And that is you. This ball has languages on it from all countries of the world where I have been that says, I have a dream. And that means that you have a future, which is the questions I will get to later, and that you can fulfill that dream. But you are resilient, you can bounce back higher, and you can think change is natural. We have many changes now. So how have you dealt with change in the past? That's how resilient you are, that you can still do with this change and deal with it. As you heard from Dr. Gautam, there are many levels of distress, as you see here, that they're in this graph. He also showed their research that there are at least half of people who have been very distressed by this, so by what is happening in COVID-19, so you know you're not the only one. Okay, there are many popular counseling disciplines that I'm going to to discuss here, even though I will give you some simple techniques, there are deeper psychological true principles these are based on. With Rogerian counseling, that means to look at yourself with kindness and not judging. Cognitive behavior therapy, that I will show you some techniques that are a way to control all those troubling thoughts in your mind. Existential therapy, which means thinking, what is life about? Gestalt therapy, which has other techniques, and also knowing that there are deeper feelings that you have deep inside that this crisis is triggering. There's also traditional healing, by the way. Some of you may be familiar with some of this. I did do some shaman training when I was in Nepal. And doing rituals can be very helpful, by the way, whether or not you believe in them. There is a principle that no matter what you believe, if you believe it, it will help you. So whatever technique you use that I'm going to show you, or that your friends can come up with, or Dr. Gautam's helpers can come up with, if you believe that you will get better, that will be half of the problem. Whatever you believe, you can conceive and you will achieve. So whether it is wrapping strings where around a tree, where the tree is strong and the strings are not so strong, but when you are wrapping them together, it strengthens them, or whether you believe in the shaman training and the traditional techniques, the point is that if things help you, they can help you. However, you should always, if things get really, really troubled, you need to see a professional. If they get on and if it interferes with your life too much, then do that. I know people have feelings about medication. They can help in some cases, but always medication and counseling. That is the research that shows. So some of the questions, a lot of the questions had to do with troubling thoughts, things that are going on in your mind. I can't sleep. The thoughts, as you see here, come into my head. I worry if I get sick, what can I do? People don't love me. I get called out of the blue to do a task. I can't, but overthinking every minute makes me unproductive. I'm suffering with physical problems. And what am I going to do to get these thoughts out of my mind? So now remember, I told you about cognitive therapy, behavioral therapy. So CBT it is called. You can control your thoughts. You really can. And one of the simple techniques that is based on much research is showed the thought stopping technique. So first I want you to get a positive thought in your head. Think about something that really made you feel good. Whatever it was, playing with your children, walking out, seeing the beautiful sunshine, get that thought in your head. Now, if you feel sad and you want to cry and you get, oh my God, all those worries that I just told you about are in your head over and over and over again, I want you to interrupt them. Interrupt them by seeing either a stop sign in your head or clapping. When you clap like this, it makes you even now have a little bit of shock. Well, it changes that thought. This is based on brain theory, interrupts that thought, and now you purposely switch to the happier thought. So you can do this. Happy thought in your head, then you feel sad. Interrupt it with something, snap your fingers, clap, see the stop sign, and change it to the positive thought. Why do I say that? This is based on neuropsychology. And the research on the brain shows, as you can read right here, that there is a synchronization of the brain waves between different regions of the brain. And the brain can only think of one thing at one time. So if I say touch your finger, okay, touch your finger. Now I say pull your ear, pull your ear. While you're pulling your ear, you're pulling your ear. You're not touching your finger, and your brain is focused on pull ear, touch finger, pull ear, one thing at a time. That is the principle of this thought-stopping technique that can help you turn from the miserable thought to more happiness. These are pictures from the UAE, which I told you before about Bhutan, and your DPR was talking to you about the concept of happy Nepali people, prosperous Nepal. Now the United Arab Emirates has a big campaign about the happiness of the people. Every time you go into work, you see a screen that says, how happy are you today? And it makes you feel happy. You see these smile figures everywhere. In New York, we see them at the airport. In Montreal, they're in the bathroom. So there's a global way to do this. Okay, now change your brain chemistry and smile, because here's the point. If I'm smiling at you, there is no way that you can't smile back at me. That's how the brain works. So look, Mira, I'm smiling at you now. You have to smile back at me. Dr. Gautam, I'm smiling at you now. Bang! 1, 2, 3. He had to smile back. I'm telling you, it works. Try it with your all the people that you know. Many questions were about guilt. Things like, I'm not doing any work at home for a month. I need to search for a job, but I can't leave the bed, and I feel guilty about it, actually using that word. If I go on long walks and I read a book all day, it helps me relax, but I feel guilty that I'm not being productive, or I'm sleeping too much and I've lost interest in everything. I feel guilty because I'm not paying attention to school and my goals. So what are you going to do with that guilt besides that thought stopping? Okay, that's the primary thing. I want you to feel passionate and compassionate with yourself. It is okay. Whatever you feel now is okay. Be kind to yourself. Say, I am going through this stress. It is very difficult for me. I need to go slowly. When I was climbing the mountain, they kept saying to me, slowly, slowly. And I'm a very quick person, as you can tell, and as Mira knows. So going slow, take it slow. If you can't do the work you want to do, or you're lying in bed a little bit of time, it's okay. Give yourself permission to be where you are. Eliminate the word should from you. Whatever you are doing now is okay. The most important thing is taking care of yourself. You are number one, going slowly and feeling it is okay how I feel. Many questions were about anxiety. I just made them shorter here. I'm anxious and nervous. I'm anxious at very small things. The signs of anxiety, you may notice, Dr. Gautam has certainly recognized them in people he helps. Pounding heart, you can't focus, you can't sleep, you're shaking, and what is going to be this new normal that everybody talks about. Anxiety during lockdown is on many things, jobs and working from home and school closures and exclusion from people, bereavement, of course, domestic violence, fear of contagion, medical problems, lack of sleep or food, or all these things. Okay, so besides all the other techniques I talked about, breathing is very important. We forget to breathe. I know it sounds simple, but it's not really. We need to breathe. Really take in the breath. That is the breath of life, and the breath of relaxing or energizing. So these techniques are to breathe in more than you breathe out, or out more than you breathe in. One is to relax and the other is just to energize. So you can try it now to relax if you want to relax. Place your tongue up behind your two front teeth. That's to stop you from taking the air in your mouth. And inhale to the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Now exhale more to the count of 4 with making a loud sound, whoosh. I can't make it because I'm talking to you. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see you're inhaling 3, exhaling 4. What is that doing? It is calming your physical signs, your body. Okay, so try it. Inhale to the count of 3. Exhale to the count of 4. Are you feeling more relaxed? Are you feeling more relaxed? I see some shaking heads. Yes. Okay, now if you are lying in bed all the time and you are exhausted all the time and you want more energy, you do the opposite. You inhale to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and blow it out quickly to the count of 3, so that this is building your energy. We call it amp or ramp. So relaxing or energizing. So you inhale to the count of 3 and 4, and then you quick exhale. And I promise you, you will feel like awake, more awake. This is physiologically something that works. So coping with anxiety, so many people have it. You heard Dr. Gautam talk about that. You heard Dr. Nepal talk about that. You heard the DPR talk about that, the Deputy Permanent Representative. I'm going to ask you to allow yourself a 10-minute period where you could be anxious, okay? Because if you let yourself have the feeling, then it can dissipate. What you resist persists. So allow yourself to be anxious. I know it doesn't feel good, but you must allow it. I promise you it can pass if you don't fight it. And then if you want to lie down, and then do the breathing, and then allow yourself a 10-minute vacation for distraction from the anxiety. Okay, I'm gonna have 10 minutes I can be anxious. Now I'm gonna have 10 minutes that I can allow myself to be distracted and do something that makes me feel less anxious, like reading or walking or cooking. Taking action is what gets you out of anxiety. Anxiety, A. To action, A. Make yourself do one small thing that feels good. I don't care if it's whether you clean your pots or whether you reorganize your desk or whatever it is, to do one thing that you feel calm about. And I want you to remember this principle psychologically. Anxiety is energy. It can turn this, what you feel anxious, into positive energy for action that drives you forward. I know Dr. Gautam knows that. It's called the Yerkes-Dodson law. It means that, as you see in this graph, a little bit of arousal can be a good thing for performance. Sports stars know this. When they get anxious, they know this is my sign of energy up to that middle point. Too much, you may need some help. But if it's a little bit, that can push you into some sort of action that will let it go. Certainly with relaxing and getting less anxious, yoga, as has been mentioned, mindfulness, which is a very popular term now in the East and the West, I must say. Many people in the West are doing meditation, as you see these people doing here. And mandalas, as you very well know, my house is surrounded with them and I have them everywhere as a way of focusing your energy, but you could use whatever you want to focus your energy on. But these beautiful, beautiful pieces of artwork can certainly help, and they're very, very magical, as you know. It's very important for you to be in the present, in the now. And I know that Dr. Gautam uses this technique too, as do we, which is being grounded. So right now, I want you to feel your feet on the ground. If you're sitting in a chair, okay, just like squish your feet so you, whether you're wearing shoes or whatever, into the ground and feel yourself sitting in the chair. I want you to feel that groundedness. You are connected to Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is very sacred in Nepal. So that grounding will bring the energy down from your head into your feet and into the earth. So that is a very important technique. Be aware of your thoughts in order for you then to be able to meditate, and your space. So feeling safe, that I'll get to in a minute, is to be able to look around you and just know where you are. Now, many people, you're in your house, but you know, have you ever really noticed what's in your house? So the technique really is about feeling safe, that I will get to in a minute. Of course, another way to be less anxious is for you to meditate in your beautiful temples, which you see here in Bhaktapur that Mira mentioned before. This was magical experiences. I've been to many of them. So anger was another question that came up. I'm short-tempered and anger is killing my marriage. I'm snapping all the time, as you see there. Okay, fighting, no more fighting. If you are angry, though, I understand. Those feelings are pent up, so I'm going to allow you to get them out. But you need to punch a pillow, as you see that teddy bear doing. Punch a pillow, scream if you need to scream. But even if, say to people, if they're in your house, I'm going to scream, it has nothing to do with you, but just let me do this. You have to release. Release is important. Release by the verbalizations and also by pounding on something soft. You don't hurt yourself. I just did it on my desk. So don't hurt yourself. Do it into something soft. Writing it out is very helpful. Journaling. This is a technique used all over the world. You can speak into your phone if you're younger and you like to do that, or you can write down in a journal to get all those feelings out. They can't stay inside you. They need to come out. Release, release, release. It was just very important and very healthy for you. Okay, so since the question was asked about ruining the relationships, when we get angry and anxious and all aggressive and irritable, we ruin our relationships. We take it out on other people. We don't want to do that. Okay, don't recognize this is coming from inside me, doing some of your release, and then reaffirm the kind of love with your family members. If you're able to be with them, even in the lockdown because you're both not infected, eye contact is very important. You can create tremendous intimacy by just spending time having eye contact, as you see here. Whether it's from far away by using some kind of phone, you can still express your love. Expressing love is what helps us get through the isolation. And then, of course, when it's safe, spending time together, even if you're in lockdown together, be close when you're watching TV, when you're reading something, when you're going on the internet, if you have a garden, when you're gardening with something, expressing love, and then later doing whatever you could do outside and spending time together. I want to remind you, since Mira mentioned about the Idiot's Guide to a Healthy Relationship and the Idiot's Guide to Dating, and there's another book also that's been in the Pilgrim's Bookstore, why do I say this? Because healthy relationships are built on remembering when you first fell in love, when you first were finding out, what do you enjoy? What's your favorite color? What do you like to do together? Look at how cute those couples are together that you see there when you first were getting married and betrothing to each other. That is what we need to go back to. It may feel unnatural to you now, but do it anyway, and you'll get over that feeling, and then it will come more natural. Ask the people in your life, whether it's your loved ones, your partners, or even your children, what do you enjoy? What is your favorite toy? What is your favorite activity? Asking those questions really helps in our relationships. And those books have a lot of, they're available in Nepal. There are many, many quizzes that you can take together that are also very helpful, that get you over the embarrassment and shame of talking, because it's in a book and you can read it and you can write out the answers. Communicating is very important. I know I got some emails from Mira and she wrote, beloved. And I went, what? Oh my God, thank you for using that word. That's so fantastic. Right, that is the word I remember so much from Nepal. And it needs to be used so much in Sanskrit. You know, you are the beloved. Start using beloved to people when you are talking to your loved ones. It's so magical. Listening is very important also. Giving time for people to talk, not interrupting them. And when this may sound also a little bit strange, but when someone says something, you repeat back to them, I think I heard you say. So they say what they want to say, and you listen entirely, and then you repeat back to them, I heard you say this, is that right? That is a very helpful technique that people know and they feel loved. Now, many people feel lonely. We heard that from all our previous speakers. Because of the lockdown, I have no physical contact, people said, presence of people. I had to work remotely, less face-to-face communication has been hard for me. How do I maintain connection without seeing people? I live alone. How can I enjoy it? Can you enjoy being alone? Well, we have all these things that we could use now. Almost everybody has a phone, so learn to use some of it. And to communicate, it's okay. We will get back to things. Doing an act of kindness for someone, because when you feel lonely, you're into yourself. So come out of yourself by offering to do something for someone. A simple, simple thing. Can I get you a fork? You know, can I make your bed for you? Can I bring you a book? Whatever it is, a simple act of kindness is really important. And this phrase that is so lovely, they learn to be alone and to like it. There is nothing more freeing and empowering than learning to like your own company. You are your own best friend. As a very important thing, I've been on a soapbox about this, by the way. I don't like using the word social distance. I don't want to hear people saying that word, because social connection is what makes people feel good. So don't use that word anymore. Instead, physical distance, because that's what we're talking about in this lockdown, and when this period comes, even when there's opening up and we have to stay a certain distance, 6 feet from one another, to not transmit the droplets of the virus. So think of it as physical distance, never social, because social is part of the Nepali culture. We love each other, we want to be together, we want to talk, and so it is not about social distance, and that is proven by research. Grieving is such a major thing. I mean, I myself have lost family members during this crisis, and it is tough. You cannot go to the funerals. You cannot be with the people. You cannot mourn and hug together. It is so painful. And in Nepali, this is such a beautiful culture of mourning, of prayers and of food and lighting and the fires that are set. And then the dancing afterwards, the celebrations. There's been a study actually on Nepali widows. And these are the things that they came to, that besides the grief, they realize they are resilient, which is what I said. They're accepting what is happening and moving on with confidence and strength and saying, that was my past. I do have a present now. And I can see that that is so. And what I mentioned before, which is social support and social participation, that is so important in solving everything. So now the other questions that have come have been about so many things, about fears and nightmares, even children, as you see there, having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night. I'm scared to go outside, people said, to touch things at home. How can I not be scared and fearful during this time and do normal things? I've been waking up to nightmares in the middle of the night for a while. Recognizing all those stresses and knowing it's okay to wake up in the middle of the night. Really, You can wake up as many times as you want. Those nightmares, by the way, reframe them. It's not just that they are scary thoughts, although they may feel that way. They are coming out of you. See it as this energy coming out of you that it needs to be released. Welcome them as, oh, I had that horrible nightmare. Bad things were going. I was falling. Things were hitting me. Okay, that is your feelings coming out. And so that can be a purging, releasing feeling that is positive. And in terms of being scared to go out and touching things at home, recognize those things are real because you've been told about the virus. But, you know, touching things, we know from latest research, touching things is not dangerous anymore. We used to wipe stuff off and worry about the bags that had, you know, 2 weeks and everything. That science is showing that's not the case. So you can feel safe and learn what the facts are, so that will help you with the fears. Getting facts minimizes the fears. Remember that. Facts minimize the fears and allow yourself to release. Feeling safe, this is what I started to talk about before. This is my 3-part safety exercise of breathing. Put your hands on your heart, or you can do the namaste on your heart if you like, and say, I am safe. Breathing in. 1, 2, 3, and then breathing out, I am safe. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, breathing out, I am safe. I felt it myself. I hope you did. I had a little tingling in my hands. Mira's shaking her head, yes. So Ashish, maybe you felt that too. I see you. So that is a very magical, simple as could be, but I'm telling you, it's based a lot on brain theory and neuropsychology. Now you can extend it. If there are people around you, you can breathe in, put your hands on your heart. I am safe. That energy you collected, you can send out to the other person without even touching and saying, you are safe. You are safe. And then you can send that energy to the world by into your heart. I am safe. You collected all that energy. You could breathe in from the sky, Father Sky and Mother Earth, down from your feet, and then send it out to the world, because we all need it. We're all in the same place. I'm in New York. I'm in the epicenter of the pandemic here. So, and Brazil has more cases, and Italy had more, and, you know, many countries. So all the safety to all the people in the world, because we're in this together. Contact comfort is very important. This releases brain chemicals, oxytocin and prolactin. Dr. Gautam knows that too. They're called the cuddle chemicals. Here is my bear that I have used around the world that came from 9/11, that I gave to children, as you see down there, me handing the bear to the child after the horror of the loss of the attacks on the World Trade Center. And many places around the world where bears are very, very common despite the culture. So cuddling the bear when you cannot cuddle a person will help you release those chemicals in your brain, because it is called the cuddle chemical, as you see there with the child. It's based on attachment theory, that when children hold stuffed animals, they experience the closeness that feels like the closeness from mother when you feel safe. And when it is safe, after COVID-19 passes, you can go back to some of those closenesses. Contact with culture also does this, and you have such beautiful culture, and in nature in your culture, right outside, you know, walking quite a bit. Being with nature and greenery, there are many studies about this, many of them about the environment, stimulates healthy brain chemicals, as you see here, touching a leaf, walking. That's a picture from the Kathmandu Valley. The endorphins that are released in that experience versus the cortisol that gets us all, you know, worked up, affects the cortex of the brain here to help us relax. So that is very important. There were many questions about depression, and you've heard Dr. Nepal address that depression. Some days I feel so dark and glooming, not having people around me is depressing. The answers to that are really, really important, to talk to other people. Connection with other people helps you get rid of that depression. But depression also is something you work on with yourself. It comes from feeling out of control, that there are things that you cannot control, for sure. So think about what you can control. That will help you to feel less depressed. Even simple things. It's a whole Japanese theory of therapy about what is a simple thing you can control. By the way, I can control brushing my teeth. I can control fixing my desk. I can control turning on my phone. Simple, simple things that you can control, that you could say, when you are in control, you feel less depressed, less anxious. It also works for panics and fears. Also, sometimes another technique is that when you feel sad, you can get mad, not at people really around you, but it is the flip-flop of those feelings. People who get mad really are sad underneath, and the opposite. Get professional help if it gets too painful, lasts a week, or interferes with aspects of your life. And as I said, medication can help, but always in combination with counseling. Never just medication, and don't self-medicate yourself with alcohol and drugs and domestic violence, as we've heard before. And moving is important. There, I don't want to forget that. You see them? Move your body. That will get you out of feeling depression, which is an inward feeling. You want to go outward with moving your body, and that will help you. Okay, so I'm coming near to the end. How can I be happy? Well, we did hear about the PM of Nepal's campaign, the initiative to Prosperous Nepal, Happy Nepali. I showed you some of the pictures from UAE about happiness and how smiling can make a difference. Happiness is in your control. You can choose at this moment, as I said before, am I going to feel good or am I going to feel bad? Let yourself feel bad for a second. Now I want you to stop, snap your fingers, clap your hands. Now I'm going to feel good. It is in your control. Another way to feel happy is gratitude. Gratitude. You are thankful for things. Whatever things are going on that may be stressful in your life, there are things you can be thankful for. Every morning, when you look in the mirror, think of something you can be grateful for your family, for your health, for your home, for your being alive, for your being in control of certain things, for your surviving. Write down some things even that you're grateful for. Appreciate yourself for the things, endless things we can appreciate you for, and appreciating the loved ones around you and complimenting them. We forget to do that, to say, you know, it's so wonderful that you helped me wash the dishes. Just those simple things. Just so helpful that you listened to me talk to you. So helpful that you are doing whatever they're doing for you. So a man once told Buddha, I want happiness. And Buddha replied, first remove the I, because that's ego. Then remove the want, because that's desire. And now, what are you left with? Just left with happiness. You don't have to want it. Take away those two words. Just happiness. Laughing is important. You know, Mira mentioned about the pets that everybody loves in Nepal. And coronavirus, and this is a joke that somebody told me that I'm sharing with you, because I belong to a club that tells jokes to make people happy, and Laughing the Forest Club. Coronavirus has turned us all into puppies. We're told no if we get too close to strangers. But ultimately, we are all puppies. And when the pandemic allows us, we can cuddle and love each other like we love our puppies, and cuddle and pet them. And feeling that you are strong. This is one of my last techniques I'm going to share with you. You make a circle like this with your hands. Let me see you all doing it. Make a circle like this. There you go. And now pull your fingers out from that circle. It's easy, right? I see you all doing it. Very easy, isn't it? Yes, I see you doing that. Now I want you to imagine that this is like glue, that this is absolutely strung together like the strongest glue. Now put your fingers here and try to break that circle. Let me see you all do it. Can you do it? No, right? I see you shaking your hand. No, thank you, Janisa. You cannot do that if that's how you are. Put this in your heart and say, I am that strong when I allow myself to be that strong. Don't spend so much time on hearing all the news and all this social media that gets you crazy with everybody's thinking and thoughts. Taking care of yourself is important. This question was about all my sons all over the world have their own lives, and I spent my life taking care of other people. How do I take care of myself and my body? Decide. This is the time to take care of yourself, psychologically, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually. So all these ideas, we could come up with so many ideas of how you could take care of yourself and give yourself a present all the time. With sleeping if you want to sleep, with running even in your house if you want to do that. Dr. Nepal was saying that was advice he gave to some of the patients that called. You may not be able to run outside, so run in your house in circles, it's okay. eating whatever food you want, talking to your pets, taking care of yourself in taking a bath, singing to yourself, whatever those things are that are self-care. Recognizing that you are goddess and goddesses. This is so important to me because Nepal is the sacred land. It is a land of gods and goddesses. And I didn't know much about it before I went there, but it is a part of my life now. And it is so significant that honoring yourself, that namaste means I honor the you and I honor myself. I honor the God in you and the God in myself. If you use that word, I honor the goddess. And by the way, the goddess, the woman, is the source of all energy in this tradition. So here they all are. Durga is empowerment, Saraswati is wisdom, Lakshmi is wealth, Tara is compassion. Kali, you may think of as anger, like I told you, the Kali shrine with the blood and the sacrifices, but she is the protector. You are protected in your country, even though you feel you have so many problems, as by the way, we do here in America too. We are going through the worst of times, really worst of time, and frightening with the economy and the protests and the sadness and people not having money and work and everything that you're going through too. But you are in a country of protection. And the male protectors and gods, with Brahma the creator and Shiva the destroyer and Vishnu the protector and Ganesh who has this big mouth to move forward and enjoy life. This is your tradition that I honor and really bless, and why I surround myself with all, where's my Ganesh? Oh, here's my Ganesh. Here's my Ganesh, and I have my Taras and my Shivas and Shaktis all over the place. For protection and for growth. Honoring the union that you have. And you see the Shiva and Shakti there on the left. And in the middle, how in this union, you really can connect to the higher spirits. That's all in the book that's in the Pilgrim's Bookshop that I found, on the one that I wrote about tantric sex, because there is a tantric tradition of energy in Nepal. Honoring your heritage, that is so important and so beautiful and so much a part of your country in gorgeous ways. So the questions about people's future, like one of the questions, I can't decide about my future. All my friends are living their life and I'm here doing nothing because I don't know what steps I should be taking. My parents are willing to help me, but I don't want them to have difficulty and I have no hope for the future. Guess what? You do have a future. And if anybody offers to help you, your parents, allow them to help you. Because remember I said that helping helps the helper. So if your parents are helping you, they're getting goodness out of it, and appreciate that kind of goodness, whatever anyone is offering you. And don't worry that you're doing nothing right now. Go slow. Remember I said it's okay for you to be where you are. And having hope for the future means that ball I have here, which I take all over the world with me, as I said, the bouncing ball for resilience is also for your dream. So this says, I have a dream in all languages from all over the world. And what is your dream? You are entitled to have it. And you can, if you think it, you can achieve it. Changing your perspective here. What do you see in this picture of out here? Mira, what do you see here?
A smile.
A smile. Very good. Janisha, what is it beside a smile?
Sorry? Yeah, it's a smile. I see a smiling face, like an emoji that we use.
Good, but what are they?
Birds.
Yes, so they're birds in the sky, but they're also a smile. So changing your perspective is beautiful. Seeing those birds, and then you see the smile in the sky. And here too, what do you see here? There are two faces, right? But there's also a vase between them. So you can create your dream. And the last question I'm going to address is, am I okay? So some people said, I'm stress-free. Should I be worried? Then I'm not worried. Yes, because they'll celebrate that. That's wonderful. We're talking about all the problems. I see that Dr. Galtram is smiling. So it's okay that you're feeling okay. Don't feel guilty. That's called survivor guilt. Everybody's miserable and I'm okay. That you are okay, that you are okay. And for that point, post-traumatic growth is important besides what you heard about post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress is all those fears and depression. Post-traumatic growth means that you can be stronger after the crisis, after danger. You have a chance for a new growth and opportunity. That's why I have the frame there. It's called reframing that Dr. Gautam knows with his patients. And there is a silver lining. So in the questionnaire that we gave out, we asked you, what is your silver lining? Can anything good come out of this? The answers that people gave for their life, and this was very common, that the silver lining is more time for my family. More people than anything gave that. That was the biggest answer. More time for their family, their children, their grandchildren, cooking and eating and having fun. Eating better, time for putting things off for a while, reading, learning, technology-based learning, even though you're not going to school and you may not like it, cooking skills, better at other languages like Spanish. You can relax because things are paused, take advantage of that. Somebody said they play games better. Someone said their habit of alcohol's into control. Thankfully, like Dr. Nepal was saying the opposite, starting to appreciate the little things in life. Walking in a crowded city, hanging out with their friends at the coffee shop, not having to watch the news all the time. And best that somebody said, loving themselves more. There were also silver linings for the world, and bless you for saying that. The air is cleaner. Kathmandu Valley looks beautiful without the thick layer of dirt in the clouds. People are more health conscious and they start their basic self-sustainable practices. And we have to fight with the pandemic by natural climate and economy crisis. So there can also, look at how carefully people are thinking about what good can come out of this terrible bad. New philosophy of life about yourself and the world. Some people said, you never know what happens, so be happy with whatever you have. And life is ephemeral, so you never know when you're gonna die. I don't really care about property and richness anymore. So I'm going to die anyway. Don't think of that as a negative thing, but think about, okay, all these, what is the value of life? And my favorite one is that in that picture, when the door closes, a bigger window opens, a brighter window opens, and it's not what happens, it's how you handle it. And since everything is change, then we need to accept it and move on. There are silver linings for the world of love, togetherness, and hope. And so those are my messages. And thank you very much. We will post on Facebook some of the things we have talked about from Dr. Gautam and the article I wrote about the Kathmandu Valley. And so thank you very much. Bless you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Judy, for just bringing hope for people who are not feeling a ray of hope for the future and feeling like, I don't know what, like, I don't know if I'll be able to accomplish my dream and things like that. So thank you for reinstilling that. And I do want to say that, you know, like you talk about this and these are exercises, but while we were working to create this webinar together, I was contacting some people and I was not hearing back. And I was like, Dr. Kuriansky, I don't know if we should go on. I don't know if this is meant to happen. And I remember her saying, when one door closes, another bigger and better door will open. And it was so true because we ended up working with different people, but it worked out really well. And, you know, like when I was like about to give up, you were like, keep going. And, you know, like in some ways when we think it's like, maybe it won't really happen, but it happened and it does happen. So I really would like to thank you, Dr. Kuriansky, for answering all of our questions from our friends and family and supporting us right now.
You're very welcome. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Professor Judy, it was really a good and impressive presentation. Thank you for incorporating like history and geography and all the traditional arts and culture of Nepal. It was beautifully highlighted. And I really appreciate that you have included all the traditional healing techniques, especially the visits to shamans and also applying like meditation, yoga, which are increasingly being used in the eastern part of culture, and Buddhism, and especially like a mindfulness-based CBT, which is emerging now. So these have originally originated from the Eastern culture. So religious is a part of good cultural healing in Nepal, and sticking to a particular religion and the cultural practices like grief processes. These are quite beneficial for healing, and people have been applying these all in our cultural practices. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's right. And I forgot to mention that I'm actually wearing this truly holy scarf that you can see here. that was given to me by the Chini Lama, and I have it actually in my office all the time, and I wear it occasionally, and so I wore it specially on this program. And I appreciate so much the love and friendship from the Chini Lama family.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Gautam, for everything you are doing.
Mr. Bandanarana, are you still there? I do know it's quite late in Nepal.
So she has left.
I think but I have to leave in a few minutes. No. So I was wondering if I should speak or should I leave?
Oh my God, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah,
sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. All right. No, you know what, Judy, because I know I was approached only yesterday to speak for this, and normally I do not take any assignments on Saturdays. And another principle of mine is I do not take Zooms for more than 1.5 hours. And this has been almost 2.5 hours. So I really did not anticipate this, you know, and it's a Saturday night here and I'm quite stretched out in terms, but though that does not mean your dialogue was, you know, very, very sound and very energizing. But I really didn't anticipate this. I'm very, very sorry, you know, because I really didn't know that, because, you know, when I asked Mira the running order, it was somewhat anticipated to be for 1.5 hours. So I did not realize that I needed to give time for almost 3 hours. It's been 3 hours actually from 7:15 onwards. So I'm really sorry about that, but my mind, that is why, is not really focused, you know, and I could not follow entirely because I had other duties to do. You know, on a Saturday evening, I was babysitting my granddaughter, and, you know, she was spending the night with me. So there was a lot of things. So I'm sorry, you know, like young girls, you all have to tell us beforehand that this is how long it's going to be, you know, so that's been a little bit of a dimmer for me. Otherwise, let me just now, first of all, say that I thank the organizers. This is a very critical issue. Mental health, I think, is a very, very critical issue. And I've heard the 3 speakers, you know, the DPR who has already shared with you the national policies, what the government is committed to, and what the responses are. And then of the TPO, Dr. Kamal, it was so, though, you know, Sathi, and the co-founder that I am from the organization, I'm a co-founder of the organization Sathi, and we do collaborate with TPO from time to time. I do recall that. But I really did not know the magnanimity of the work that you do. And salute to you all, because particularly in this challenging time, to be able to do psychosocial counseling in quarantine centers at the magnitude that you are doing, I think there are very few countries who are doing that, because that's the biggest issue it is, you know. First of all, training, having even the psychosocial counselors who are there are not capacitated to respond to the pandemic situation. So, you know, to be able to capacitate and reach out in all the provinces, hats off to you. I think that's a commendable work, and I really liked your presentation, though it was a bit long, but I think it was very, very comprehensive, and I appreciate all the work that you are doing, and I'm sure we will collaborate more in the coming days. And of course, I wanted to thank Dr. Nepal and Judy. Of course, I can never say no to you. You know, I've known you, I think it must be around almost 2 decades when you came to Nepal, and I do remember your you know, advices during that time about relationships, about being happy, about being positive. And I do follow a lot of positivity, you know, so the young girls and the boys who are here, I think positivity, the lessons that she gives is extremely profound to take it forward, and it's always so energizing. And I know you could go on and on, but like I said, I had so many other responsibilities that I was feeling a little bit, I mean, I knew, like, I thought I should leave the meeting, and then I felt, oh my God, you know, Mira might be disappointed. So I was getting very distracted a bit, you know. But I know you could go on, and we could have a separate session with you just giving advices to, you know, to cope with the COVID pandemic. I think I'm sure the youth and the youngsters and everyone, I could relate to all that you said. So many things that you said, I could relate personally to myself, to the people that I live with, and the people, the survivors of violence that come to us, you know, so I could respond to all those questions. It was very, very, you know, I tried to follow it, and it was very, very good, and I think very, very effective. And I also appreciate your love for Nepal, your love for the cultures, the values, the heritage of Nepal, it's so much appreciated, and I really appreciate that. You know, I know you are a well-wisher of Nepal, and we appreciate that, and that is why I couldn't say no to you, that I wanted to join this dialogue. So Meera, you've been a great moderator. I can't believe this is the first program that you are moderating. You seem to be very, very promising, and you know, you're excellent. So go ahead, you rock, you know. And well, now coming back, you know, I actually joined the dialogue. I'm not an expert on mental health, but I actually joined the dialogue to hear the professionals and add a bit of my experience on activism and domestic violence as well, because it concerns a lot with mental health. So of course, when you talk about mental health, what I know is that 80 to 90% of mental health conditions are not treated at all. They are not even considered worth treating. You know, the stigmatization, the acknowledgement, the recognition is not there globally itself. So we can imagine smaller countries like Nepal, developing countries like Nepal, the issue is even more graver, you know, even more serious. So, but particularly for me, having worked with shelters, you know, in Sathi, and having worked always, we've had a very huge challenge. And the challenge is, we have a small, even now at present, Sathi runs 4 women's shelters and 5 children's shelters. And in our women's shelters, it's a small shelter. We find it very difficult to get funding, resources. Mr. Bhandari, even in his earlier deliberation, said one of the key concerns is awareness, and the other is increasing funding, which is so extremely important, particularly to respond to and support survivors of violence, as well as you know, people living with mental health condition. So, but in our shelters, and not only in our shelters, during this, after COVID, we are now almost in the final stage of doing a rapid assessment of shelter operations. And we actually surveyed around 32 shelters from 7 provinces. And out of those 32 shelters, none of the shelters actually support victims or patients of mental health, because you do not have the capacity. You need to have specific capacity, specific infrastructure, specific medical support systems to support people with mental health condition. So the shelters that operate in Nepal, most of them, except for 1 or 2, which are very specifically catering to mental health, like Koshis that I know of, you know, but otherwise, most of the shelters do not take in, because not that they don't want to, but they do not have the capacity, the financial support, the infrastructure to support conditions or patients of mental health conditions. So and these 32 shelters that we were doing this rapid assessment, none of them would like to take. But however, again, Nepal, you know, there's a lot of adaptability. We cannot say no. There's so much of resilience that even in Sathi, we have been referred to so many cases where they earlier will say, no, it's not a mental health case. So we take in, but we realize it's a severe mental health condition, you know, but we've had to deal with it. We've had to respond to it. And the reason I am saying this is because most of the cases that we take in are of domestic violence. But, you know, domestic violence, 80% of the cases, domestic violence cases, will then emerge or grow to be a mental health condition, a severe mental health condition. So that is the root cause. Even the cases that we bring in, that is the cause. So I personally feel that, I know Nepal has come up with a policy. Nepal is committed to take it forward. And I'm very proud to say that being in the CEDAW committee, now that I have reviewed around 70, 80 countries, compared to many countries, even most developed countries, Nepal is in the forefront of having, you know, some of the best policies where gender issues are concerned, where violence is concerned, where gender-based violence is concerned, where even domestic violence is concerned. And I'm sure mental health issues in the coming years, now particularly with the focus on SDG 3.4 and Nepal's own policy, that it will be given more importance, more commitment in terms of increasing funding, in terms of increasing support services, in terms of building collaboration and partnership with organizations who are able to provide that kind of support. You know, so that, and the other is, main thing is awareness, because the awareness is not there. You know, initially, because mental health condition will evolve as a minor condition, but you do not take it up in the earlier stage. Then it emerges as a severe condition, and then you say the person is mad, and then you don't want to have anything to do with it. So I think the stigma And awareness raising is extremely important. Changing mindsets, support services is extremely important. So these are areas I was very, very impressed with what TPO is doing. But TPO is doing psychosocial counseling. What about where do we keep the the people who are suffering from mental health? That is not adequate in the country at all, not only in Nepal, and I see this globally as well. Even in other countries, mental health condition is not given the importance it should be given. So I mean, I don't know what more I can add to it, but I can say that in Nepal, compared to many countries, we have a vibrant civil society. We have resilient civil society, women's organizations, women's movements, a lot of activism. Most of the gender policies that have come about is because of a vibrant movement with a changed political context. And though there are severe challenges now, we are all working together to retain the achievements that we have made. And another very good thing about Nepal is also gradually the collaboration and the partnership between the civil society and the governments are much, much more stronger than in many countries. Given the right scope and the right environment, people and bureaucrats and politicians are quite responsive, to work together. So I think working together, collective partnership, and the role of the youth is extremely important. So I'm very happy to see the youth like today, you all are here. It's very important. And for me personally, I've had 3 decades of experience working on women's activism. And at this stage, I am actually all geared up to strengthen the youth movement. I've already started working with the youth. I even say that I'm passing over my baton and my heavy bags to making myself lighter and giving it to the youth, because this January I convened a National Youth Conference on Gender Inequality, where there were around 300 youth participants from all the 7 provinces. And we did talk about violence, the youth movement, advocacy. So that's extremely important. So my very best wishes to the youth, but working collectively, collaboratively, and being happy and positive at the same time. What Judy said about self-care. I have also started introducing self-care sessions in my leadership sessions with politicians, with the youth, which is so important. I think the leaders need to feel for the people that they lead. And I hope the youth of today will understand that and move forward. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm sorry, as I said, I couldn't give my 100% at a certain point, but I'm glad I could be here and could speak to you. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are amazing. The richness of what you have given, Bandana, the devotion to women and children and to youth and to all people, both in Nepal and on the international stage, because I have seen you at the United Nations. You are truly a powerful force in this world. A brilliant woman with the kindest soul, the most devotion, and such initiatives that you have created to make a difference in your country and in the world for so many people who need it. Bless you, bless you, bless you. I am feel so blessed that I have you as a friend and that you have joined us and you have spent this time with us. And I'm so glad that now others who are here can work with you more. I know that DPR honors and respects you a great deal anyway. And
we work together, yes. Yeah.
How you are her hero.
Thank you so much. I need to leave now, but I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Mira, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Rana, for your inspiring work. And I honestly, since the inception of this plan, I really wanted someone who's a women's rights activist to join us, because the conversation on mental health is so incomplete without it. And the fact that you are providing so much support for domestic violence and all of these different situations, thank you so much for the work you do and for joining us today. So next, we're going to be moving towards our youth, who is the future of Nepal. Now, let me introduce you to Ashish. Ashish was the class president 2020 of Annandale High School. And he's going to share us a little bit about his experiences during COVID-19, what coping strategies he used, and he's going to give us some tips of how to cope and the status with the teens. So I pass it on to you, Ashish.
All right. Before I begin, I would like to thank you and Dr. Kuryansky once again for giving me this platform to speak about mental health on behalf of my generation. I hope to use this platform to uplift our youth during these challenging times. So speaking from personal experience, managing stress is definitely hard right now. Oops, sorry. All right, COVID-19 abruptly ended the final year of high school for seniors nationwide, including myself, and then a humanitarian crisis came full circle as well, where teenagers have been at the forefront of current movements. We are honestly fighting two pandemics, and maintaining a positive mindset can be difficult. So I'll share a few of my own tips for teenagers to help manage their stress. All right, I'll just share my screen so you can see my presentation. Okay. All right, tip number one is to lean on your support system. What I mean by that is have people you can talk to about your problems. This can be achieved by building a supportive network of friends and family, because having people around you that give emotional support can help you get through these hard times. Don't just bottle up your feelings. Tip number two is to have gratitude in a time of crisis, like Dr. Kuryansky mentioned earlier. This can be achieved by being aware and just appreciative. Identifying what is valuable and meaningful to you can help relieve your stress. For example, I myself have realized, even though I'm stuck at home with family every day, we're all doing well in the midst of chaos, which gives me a great sense of relief because I love them all very much. So identify your privileges, don't take them for granted, and be thankful for them. Last but not least, tip number three is having faith during a crisis. If there's anything you take away from my segment today, don't lose hope. We've had to adapt to a changing world together, so we're fighting this battle together as well. Our current problem should pass away, and if it doesn't, we've all got a responsibility to contribute towards a positive change in our society. So to all my teens out there, let's reverse adversity, bounce back stronger than ever, and build a better future starting right now.
Thank you so much, Ashish.
Wait. Okay, yeah, those are all my tips. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashish, for sharing, and not just for sharing this, but you're also a youth activist, and you created a South Asian club in high school, and you also created the WISE Foundation, a project to advocate for overlooked issues in American and Nepali society. I think there needs to come a bridge, and you really help us with that, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mira. Thank you.
Now we would like to introduce you to Janisha. Janisha Mainali is a representative general member of UWA in the Communication and Documentation Department. She is currently pursuing a bachelor's in media studies degree at Kathmandu University School of Arts. She has organized a mental health awareness campaign with her local youth club named I'm Fine, Help Me. And that includes a short film screening, open at art festival, and discussion groups that shine a light on mental health issues usually swept under the rug. Janisha will speak on the role of UWA youth in reducing stigma associated with mental health issues in Nepal. Welcome, Janisha.
Thank you, Ms. Mira. As you've already mentioned, my name is Janisha Mainali. I am so honored to be here as a representative of UWA, and I'd like to thank you as well as Dr. Judy for inviting me, and I feel so encouraged with all of her wholesome presentation. So first, I think I'd like to play the video that we made about 3 years back. This is the video.
Sorry, I think I need to reshare it. You can proceed.
All right, so talking about the video, we will be playing that in a while. So about 3 years ago in 2017, on the World Health Day, April 7, the motto or the main highlight of the World Health Day was depression, and on it we decided to make a video that would that a few of the play cards were displayed in Dr. Judy's presentation as well. So these are some of the other play cards in the video.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there a problem with the audio? It seems there's some problem with the audio, so you can also find this video on YouTube. You can just type in Yuva mental health and you will be directed to the video. There's some really nice music in the background that will very much complement to the video. So about the video, too many youths now struggle with mental health issues in silence here in Nepal. So this video was an effort to address these misconceptions and break the stigma. As Dr. Judy also mentioned earlier, the 3S were highlighted mostly: shame, stigma, and silence. So there's also this huge misconception that mental health issues comes from past sin or other misconceptions. And that with that video, we made an effort to sort of address it. So about Yuva, the term is a Nepali term that translates to youth in English. And as the name itself suggests, it is purely a youth-led and youth-run organization. All of us are 16 to 29 years old. So if you happen to come by Maharajganj, drop in at our office, and you will be welcomed by a bunch of very enthusiastic and smiling young faces. We were officially established in 2009, but we had been unofficially working in the same issues since 2005. So in my next slide, I have the main thematic areas. So in our three different thematic issues, first of all, I'd like to address the active citizenship. So it is a department that promotes youth leadership and raises the voices of the youth. And the main aim or the objective is building of youth leadership and participation. So every program that happens under active citizenship complements all of these. So sexual and reproductive health and rights, SRHR, we advocate for youth issues on social, sexual and reproductive health and rights. So with in this issue, in this specific thematic issue, we would like to increase awareness about comprehensive sexuality and education, HIV/AIDS, LGBTQI rights, and gender equality. So in our third research unit, it is a separate theme. Can we go back to the same slide? And I'm so sorry, I was explaining about the research unit. So in this unit, it is basically a research wing where we focus on youth empowerment. So here it is divided into two separate: Center for Youth Studies and Center for Gender and Sexuality Studies, where we learn more about social political issues, open data, advocacy, and etc. etc. So in the next slide, we have in the above line, you can see our very recent programs during the lockdown, actually. So we work on different areas, and all these amount to about 60 plus partnerships till date, and 300 plus collaborations so far with youth empowered up to 66,700 young people, and this is the direct ones. This does not include the social media reach that we have. And lately, we've also been organizing some of the engaging activities, such as the ones that is stated above. And in the next slide, it talks about it. It is basically an infographic of a survey that we did. How we wanted to know what the youth had been doing during this time, because we wanted to make program accordingly, what they were interested in, what they were spending most of their time on. So as you can see, a lot of people were sleeping, many were participating in online trainings, seminars, watching movies, cooking, experimenting, painting, enjoying games, making TikTok, reading books, novels, learning new soft skills. So with this in mind, we made some of the programs that were also stated before, and the ones I will be talking about afterwards. In the next slide, the survey was a little specific to mental health and productivity that was going on during the quarantine. So in the online survey, in our social media, we asked all of our participants, members, everyone involved, how, if the quarantine has affected their mental health. A lot of people strongly agreed, and there were few that disagreed, and very few that strongly disagreed. So as we already said, we are very youth focused. So most of our respondents were aged 15 to 25, and everything all the programs that we designed afterwards were also very much focused on these age groups. In the next slide is one of the sessions that we conducted after all the surveys, and we learned about what the youth wanted, what they were looking for, and how we could help through online. So it was a session on homecoming where Abhilash Acharya gave beautiful techniques. He was from Readers, and some of the exercises that we did earlier are very, very similar to what Mr. Acharya did. So this session brought applied self-determination practice, and Mr. Acharya is also focuses on emotional awareness and mindfulness approaches. So similar to this, we also conducted another webinar on mindfulness tips. And Mr. Saurabh Lohani, in this session, I was also a participant because I myself was struggling with the stress from my university, and it was quite wholesome as well, and where we learned about little tricks and techniques, how to battle what we're going through and all of that. And we also wrote a little reflection afterwards, which also helped put our thoughts and thought process into perspective. And this was the session with Saurabh Lohane. Those were the things that we did during lockdown, and before that we have been working on mental health at every chance we've gotten. So one of the surveys that we conducted very early on, there was a very interesting response to the examples of stigma and discrimination that we have seen or experienced, how they're being treated differently, and so and so. You can see on the slide itself how they are isolated. So we understood that a lot of youth do understand, they have witnessed and they have experienced. So in our next slide, we decided to make a brochure. This was also back around 3 years ago. So the data is according to that time, the research carried out around that time. So with this brochure, we decided and we hope to inform more people, aware more people, everyone. So Yuva is a place where young people come and go as interns, as volunteers, as just young people seeking advices. So there's coming and going, people are constantly coming and going. So for all of those, we decided to make this brochure so that they could also be informed about mental health and everything that has been going on. So in our next slide is also the same brochure with additional information, the statistics to understand how big of this is, or how you're not alone and things like that. In our next slide. So this was a very interesting project that was actually carried out by an intern. She came up with this idea herself, proposed to us, and we encouraged this idea. This project was called Make Things Happen, and this was about converting stress into art form. So our special guest was Mr. Sanjay Maharzam from Arts of Living, and with this, a lot of participants who were gathered at Thames International College, they learned stress mapping, and with that they learned to make art. And it was a really wholesome, building a community of people. It was a really beautiful experience. And our next slide was also another collaboration with My Emotions Matter. This was around the time when SEE graduates, the students, very young students who have just passed their 10th grade, were around this time, students are very, very stressed because in Nepal, this is considered as Iron Gate, and this is considered as the right time to make a decision as to what you want to be. And they're very young at this stage, so most of them are very, very stressed. So in this collaboration with My Emotions Matter, there were lessons about emotional intelligence and also career counseling for these SEE graduates. So obviously, we've all heard how amazing TPO Nepal has been working on this field. They have been working at the very top level, and doing amazing work. So obviously, we were also very, very excited to work with them. And we also had one program where we organized a training on mental health. This was a picture from the same program. And our next slide, we've also explained how much it made a difference, the impact it made. So this was the pre and post training surveys. It showed that there was 77% increase in participants' understanding of their own mental health, and this was along with 76% increase in participants' knowledge and understanding of mental health and mental illnesses in general, and 27% increase in the participants' belief in their ability to help or interact with someone with a psychosocial disability. There was also 21% increase in the participants' belief in their ability to inform others about their mental health. So this training was delivered by psychosocial professionals from TPEO Nepal, the facilitators, like mentioned in the previous slide, were Mr. Anjan Kumar Daka, clinical psychologist, so we've been collaborating with other organizations and working with them, and we've also practiced what we preach. So Yuva as a family is a very safe space. We all talk to each other, and not just as someone who work together, but more as a family. So even right now during this pandemic, we've been talking to each other, just asking if everything is okay. So we have this listening culture, and I think that's I personally believe that that should be incorporated by other organizations as well, because it has been really helpful for us. And so, yeah, what we're trying to do is we're trying to engage the youth, and we're trying to encourage them to come forward, talk about it, because you're not alone. Talk about it. This is a safe space. UVA is a safe space. The internet can be, we can make the internet a safe space. And we're also always looking forward to working on this issue. And I'm so glad to be representing UVA here and the work we've been doing.
Thank you so much, Janisha. It is very inspiring to see that nonprofits like UVA have been really mobilizing youth in awareness of mental health and lessening the mental health stigma. And that's really inspiring to know that it's getting to the next generation. Next, I would like you to meet Amianshu Kanal, who is also my sister. She just graduated from Connecticut College in Economics and Government, and she spent a year studying developmental economics at Oxford, and in 2018 she started a nonprofit to end menstruation exile in Nepal called She Empowered. And now you will see we two sisters are both devoted to women's rights. Ami spent the summer of 2018 in Jumla, a rural village of Nepal, advocating for menstrual rights, teaching the Nepali Constitution to teenage girls, and working with the police force to take legal action against parents and enforce chaupadi. After a few months of the program, due to law enforcement pressure, parents stopped enforcing exile of these girls. Ami will speak on empowering women in the context of international and national response to mental health and well-being, COVID-19. She's also our last speaker, but not the least. Welcome, Ami.
I think, Mira, that the DPR has to leave for a moment. So before we go, we'll give him a chance to make some final statements. Mira.
Okay.
So, Ami, we're going to hear from you in a moment. So please excuse, you're going to have definitely and we will have.
It's okay. I can wait and listen to the last speaker.
Oh, okay.
And I will wait. So no problem. Please go on.
Okay.
Promise I'll be short and sweet. So I will be talking a little bit about what the government has been doing in Nepal and their response, and I'll also be talking about She Empowered. So Nepal's past attempts in regarding to mental health. So Nepal took part in a recent international conference on mental health in 2018, which was organized by the Ministry of Health and Population in Nepal. So they collaborated with several international organizations working in the mental health sphere to identify cost-effective, efficient mental health programs in Nepal. And this is the conference of 2018, as you can see here. So COVID-19 mental health support. So what is the government doing regarding COVID-19? So a unique concept called satellite clinic is being implemented in the wake of COVID-19. So in this modality, psychiatrists provide services to rural areas on an outpatient basis. However, because of the recent lockdowns, it has caused a disruption in travel, right? So you can't travel and you're not being able to do this form of modality, which is why alternate ideas such as telepsychiatry have been suggested and have been used, as you heard from Dr. Nepal in this panel, that he has been using telepsychiatry to treat patients in Nepal. So the government of Nepal Health Research Council has also come up with a plan to conduct a cross-sectional study through online surveys to assess psychological impact of COVID-19 and screen the vulnerable groups of people, and then take focused intervention to help and alleviate. So the online link for a short questionnaire survey will be shared over social media, and the results will be again shared through national media, social media, peer-reviewed publication outlets. And lastly, I'm going to talk about World Health Organization and what Nepal has been doing in collaboration with World Health Organization. So WHO collaborated with Nepal to develop a COVID-19 response plan. And in this document, they outline that they will enhance mental health prevention in Nepal and response services. As well, they're going to be training and capacity building workshops for health workers working at points of entries to ensure that psychosocial counseling is available for migrants returning from India, the Gulf region. As we know, we have a lot of Nepali citizens in India and these other places who are coming back home during this crisis. So who is working with Nepal to ensure that they're counseling for workers in these points of entries. So I talked a little bit briefly about what the government has been doing, what the government hopes to do. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience, about how we always talk about how the government can do more, right? We all agree the government has done great job so far, and there's always room for the government to do more. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how, from my experience, about how crucial working with the government is. So in 2018, I won Davis Projects for Peace, which is a national fellowship that funds grassroots movements. So I started She Empowered, which was started to end Thopadi, which many of you know is the banishment of women to huts while they menstruate. And it is prevalent in rural Nepal and Western Nepal mostly. And I spent my summer in Jumla trying to help eradicate it. And if you, so Thopadi is unconstitutional, and the Nepali constitution deems it illegal. Even then, it's highly prevalent in places like Jumla. So the summer that I worked there, initially I didn't have this framework of working with the government, and I didn't really think that I would be doing that. But after a few weeks of working there, I realized I have to work collaboratively with the government. And I went to the National Police Headquarters in Jumla, as you can see, the Jilla Prahari Karyalaya, every day, and I tried to talk to them and tried to convince them to work with me. They didn't hear me the first time. I was just this little girl wearing a Stars Wars t-shirt, showing up to their police headquarters. But I kept going, I kept showing up. And lastly, I showed up with, these are some of the girls, but all the girls that I was teaching and working with. So they had to listen, right? And they were very kind, and they worked with me, and they promised to counsel the girls' parents, and they provided the girls, the head of the police department, Jumla, right over here, he provided, he ensured to the girls that he was going to counsel their parents, and he provided his personal phone number to the girls. And then we started counseling the parents, and eventually progress was made. The parents would allow the girls to stay in their own homes, and during the 3-month stay of myself in Jumla, I taught at the local high school, and also we've talked about how important the youth is. All the change that occurred in Jumla was because of the youth. As we can see, the girls that are here, and so many more girls that I was working with and teaching, these girls collectively advocated for themselves, and they are the future of Nepal, and they're empowered and very, very sharp and smart. And because I never thought that, when we talk about the government of Nepal, we almost talk about it in a negative context at times. But my experience working with the government of Nepal, working with the government of Jumla was so positive. I would not be able to do the things that I was able to accomplish without the help of the government. And here you can see on the side, I'm with the ward chairman of Jumla, a small province of Jumla. And we also talked to him, and he also helped us help spread the word, go to villages. We went to a lot of the villages and homes. We did the tours with him, the awareness programs. So the government was so crucial in the work that I did, and so was the youth. So the last sentiment that I want to leave this presentation with is, let's look at the work that TPO is doing. Incredible work, and they're working with the government. So we have to criticize the government, yes, but we also have to push, we have to probe, and we have to collaborate. I showed up at the police headquarters every single day. They didn't hear me out the first day, the second day, but I kept showing up. I kept pushing, I kept probing. I ended up collaborating with them. And I just hope that we can enlarge this in a national context and in terms of mental health, of how we can work with the government. All of these incredible NGOs like TPO, what Dr. Gautam is doing, all of these incredible work can be amplified if we work with the government, if we push, we probe, and we collaborate. So that is the message I want to end with today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ami, for tying it all back together into multilateralism and how governments and civil society and the youth can all work together in collaboration. I feel Dr. Judy was very, very touched by what you said, and I would like her to respond.
I am so proud of you. Both sisters, what a family, even doubly now. And guess what? Here is my Yoda. And Yoda says, to do or not to do, there is no try. So you're wearing your Star Wars shirt to work with the police in the world to make things change. You are magical here. So I would like to pass it to the DPR, Mr. Bandari, to have some response to what you have said, Ami, I think, and also his general feelings and reflections.
Thank you. Thank you, Miraji and Dr. Judy, and all panelists who have spoken before this. So I thank you once again. I do not have any particular comment or so to say suggestions on the presentations. I just wanted to thank you, two of you, first of all, for bringing us together once again, and all the panelists who have joined in this event. All presentations I thoroughly enjoyed very much. Thank you to Dr. Gautam and what his organization has been doing in Nepal, to Dr. Nepal, who was all the way from Australia, who was so very inspirational, and his comments are really very true. Of course, things are moving slow, but they are moving in the right direction, as he rightly said. And thank you to Dr. Judy, your presentation. As I said in the beginning, you know, they come right from the mouth of a professor. And as people say, it's really hard to talk or discuss or speak after professor and politicians. And by the way, I'm not a politician. I am a foreign service official. So, you know, you need to watch out. If there is a professor or a politician speaking before you, you need to be really careful. So, and your words were really inspirational, and your advice to the people who had their questions, I think, was really very helpful. And to Bandana Madam, though she's not here, she's really a true voice of those people, especially the disadvantaged people, the most vulnerable people in Nepal. She has been so active in the field of women and girls' rights. So all presentations overall were so very helpful, and I think one common thing in those presentations was that they were very positive. Like the theme today, there is no use being negative and critical. Of course, we need to be critical, but being critical doesn't mean criticizing every time. You know, criticism can be positive as well. And very big shout out to the representative from the youth group over here, three of you who spoke, Janisa, Asis, and Amiansu. Thank you so much for your words, very positive. And as Miraji said, you're the future of the country. So whatever you do, your work, your organizations, and what you do as an individual, that makes a difference, because thinking about and looking at things positively is the first way to go forward. I just have maybe a couple of more points. Just maybe a reiteration of what we have been talking about for the last 3 hours. One thing that we all have acknowledged is that mental health is an important issue, not just because of the current pandemic, but also because it has been increasingly affecting the lives of the people, their livelihoods, and the way people look at themselves, look at the society. So mental health no longer can be a footnote of physical health. It should come to the main page of the health issues. The question is it getting enough attention of the government and other stakeholders? I think in that we can debate and we can talk about more, and it again would draw the questions related to resources, capacity, and institution infrastructures that we have, and the differences, equality within nation, inequality within nation, and among nations. So these are certain questions that we can talk about. But today, as I said, you know, there's a need to talk about this more. And as you rightly said, you know, battling the stigma, shame, and silence. You know, those three words that you discussed in the presentation. I think it's important to get over them, and then accept the challenge and work together. And final word on partnership and collaboration. I think that has been the key right through the session today, and there is no doubt whatsoever that partnership, collaboration, and cooperation among all stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, as a foreign service official, I have to say, when we talk about it in a national context, it has to be among government, private sector, youth representatives, civil society, academia, think tank, everyone who is in one way or the other related to the development efforts of the country. And when it comes to the international context, the multilateral forums, the UN, or any other international setting, we can talk about regional and international efforts where everyone joins hands, and it takes, they take it as a collective responsibility. Mental health is not just a responsibility of a single country or a single community for that matter. So that's how we need to contribute from our own places. Of course, we have different positions, different platforms to work, but that's the message I think we are taking from today's program. So thank you once again. It was a real honor for me to participate and on behalf of the mission and the government of Nepal, I would like to thank you. If I forgot anyone's name, please forgive me, but thank you, all of you. I have already seen the participants, and I've seen how actively you participated and how patiently you've been listening to and following up on the comments as well. So they're very positive. So thank you once again very much, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhandari. It's a pleasure to have you here. Would you like to add something, Dr. Gautam, as concluding statements?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Meeraji and Professor Dr. Judy for organizing this webinar. It was really a great honor to participate in this webinar as a panelist and share my experiences from TPN Nepal. So as Bhandari mentioned, I'd like to acknowledge all the speakers, panelists, and the participants and representatives from youth organizations who raised their voice in a common platform. We do have a common goal in improving the mental health and psychosocial well-being of the Nepalese communities, and we are all together. So I think we should do as she rightly said, push and then collaborate. So we should join hands with the government, and we should also collaborate with all the stakeholders and agencies, maybe from Nepal and also from universities like Columbia University. So putting all the efforts in an integrated and consolidated manner would help us to achieve our goal in improving the mental health and psychosocial well-being of Nepalese community. So thank you once again.
Thank you. Dr. Judy, any concluding statements?
I am so grateful and so blessed, truly, to be having this dream come true with you, Mira. You've been phenomenal, really just spectacular, a true star and a gift to your country, and everyone who has spoken, your sister, Ami, so powerful in what you have said, and Janisha and Ashish as the voice of the youth in the future. Dr. Kamal Gautam, what you are doing for your country is truly, truly astounding. And as a politician and a professor, remember, our DPR is also a professor, that in fact, to have the voice of government and the voice of civil society and the voice of youth and the voice of academia and all these stakeholders, that fancy word put together, is a true blessing. This is the beginning of something absolutely wonderful. So it was our dream to bring you all together. It has happened. And for all of you who are part of our extended community now, who have been listening and being wonderful in participating, watching the beautiful comments that are being made. So namaste, and this is the start of something beautiful.
Thank you so much. And I would like to thank all of you, Dr. Judy Kuryansky, for just supporting us with this whole vision and like really supporting and collaborating throughout the way. And for me, helping me give this opportunity to like organize a webinar, and which was like really challenging. So I really appreciate your like encouragement all throughout. And I really want to thank DPR, Mr. Ghanshyam Bhandari ji, for joining us. I could feel that you were really committed and supportive of mental health, and you really care about Nepali people. And we are very grateful to have your support, and Dr. Gautam as well, and all of the youth. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for such amazing work. At the end of the show, I do want to extend great appreciation for Dr. Ramhari Subedi, who's been at the background handling Zoom and has been supporting us throughout this process. Thank you for your help in running all the technology and making this program possible. Dr. Subedi holds a PhD in cybersecurity and has been working with governmental officials all over Nepal, so we're really grateful for him. I hope this webinar gave you a good feeling about the framework of multilateral partnership of government, NGOs, academics, and youth united for change, and that we answered some of your questions about mental health issues. We will post some reference materials in the future, and you can continue to ask your questions and we will answer them. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to continue the conversation of mental health and well-being in Nepal. We hope to increase mental health awareness and access throughout this nation. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Let's take a picture before we go. Does somebody, if you can start just having a photograph. Can you do a screenshot? Can somebody do a screenshot of all of us?
Screenshot.
Yeah.
Ami, can you do it?
Hold on. Let me do it one more time. Yes.
Oh, I see the president of our NGO, the International Association of Applied Psychology, Dr. Roland Levy is here. So I'm going to take this picture now. All right. Wonderful. Thank you. And we can get it from the screenshot. Bless you all.
Picture
Thank you.
If you do the print screen of your computer, that would be much better than taking a picture through your phone.
That what?
Oh, instead of taking a picture through your phone, just do the print screen from your keyboard.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. Can everyone smile?
Yeah.
Mm.
Great.
Why don't we all do namaste?
Okay.
Namaste. Okay, take a print screen.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
So can I end the
Thank you.
program?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
so much.
Bye.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
I admire all of you guys. All of you guys.
Okay, so the team can stay together.
Oh, okay.
But we'll go on another Zoom.